See, we are live right now. Okay, great. Yeah, let's just kind of wait and see, get people to trickle in, see what people say in the live chat. I have with me one half of the Asian capitalist, Jeff, with me, and Bill's going to join us shortly. But I thought tonight, on a Friday night, we do what we do best, which is kind of kick back, talk a little bit about politics, what's currently happening as far as news cycles is concerned, gender, masculinity. There certainly is a lot to say about it. So, yeah, how you doing, Jeff?
Hey, good. I've noticed actually a lot of your guests recently have been talking about kind of gender issues, issues with men not being able to find dates,
Hmm.
women antagonizing men, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess as far as this topic of the gender war, I mean, what is your take on it? What are your
Mm.
initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there are days where I think, okay, yeah, I'm going to do something positive. I'm going to try to help young people find dates. And then
Hmm.
there are other days where I think this is a lost cause. People are going to be ungrateful, and screw you guys. I'm married, so I'm out. See you guys later.
Yeah, no, I mean, how has the reception been, I guess, over in Vancouver in Canada, and not just in a different country, but as an Asian man, how has the impact of the gender divide affected
Hmm.
you?
Well, Bill actually mentioned this in one of our Gillette video that if you lived an interesting enough life, you've probably been in every quadrant of the kind of the dating pool. You've been an
Hmm.
incel at one point. You've been a MGTOW at one point. You've been a kind of a player at one point, and then you've been in a long-term relationship at one point. And
Really?
I I can say for myself that I actually went MGTOW for quite a long time because I felt that well, yeah, this is what we're going to get into, I guess, right? What's with the growing MGTOW movement, first of all, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that unfortunately there just hasn't been a lot of support for like a lot of men in this particular sphere, right? And it's only become intensified. I think that we deal with a lot of issues regarding the marriage and family court system, and a lot of it is also inherently tied to politics.
Mhm.
Just to kind of take it back a little bit, I noticed that like with the political sphere, I think there was just a big hit to the woman, the female champion, right, of who was going to be supporting women, which was Hillary. And sometimes I don't think about this enough, but it was the fact that like it was basically the biggest slap in the face to feminism when the ideal representative for women lost to a straight white male, and for that matter, a masculine man.
Hmm.
So that's the idea behind that.
But who made her the kind of icon of feminism? I don't think it
Well,
was necessarily organic, right? It was kind of a media-driven narrative.
I mean, it's a media-driven narrative as well, but you have to understand that this woman, Hillary Clinton, was being primed for the presidency, primed for power for many years, right?
Mhm.
And the idea is that like I think that it wasn't just something that she just came on the forefront. Like by the time she decided to run for president, she had already been somewhat in the public eye for many decades. And if you ever read that book, Clinton Cash, which I'm still kind of getting through, there's just a lot of aspects of power from funding from different countries and just how the Clinton Foundation has always gotten a lot of money and support and everything. And naturally, she was always a contender for that sort of slot, right? Kind
Yeah.
of in the best way possible
Mhm.
with her background, her education, um, her as a lawyer supporting her husband as he was governor of Arkansas, that kind of a thing. And I think that naturally, in the age of social justice and the 21st century, I think that that's just how she kind of fell into place. Now, keep in mind, she was not a young woman when all this was going down. She was already fairly old, old, but like just she wasn't like young
Yeah.
from that aspect. So,
You're saying
um,
that the 2016 election was kind of a reflection of the gender wars that was already playing out in culture.
well, I wouldn't say so, but I just think that that's kind of where we came to. And I think there was just a big expectation that a lot of people had that they just wanted to see a woman president. They just wanted to see that happen. And it's no different with Obama, right? It was just kind of like, oh, it's time for a black president, right? And right place at the right time. And I think that that has a lot to do with it. But actually, I'm kind of curious. So you mentioned that you were MGTOW for a long time. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like
Mhm.
what made you do that? And we
Yeah,
can.
interesting. Well, I was in a long-term relationship prior to that phase of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that fell apart, I kind of felt like, you know, at the time it was like I wasn't good enough. I felt because and during that relationship, which was when I was much younger, I think in my early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
um, there was a little bit of pressure. Oh, when are we going to get serious? When are we going to get married? What's the future look like? And at that time, I felt like, oh, I'm not ready for any of this.
Right. Where was that pressure coming from? Was that coming from you or from your
Uh,
parents?
well, yeah, there's parents for one, and also from the girl.
So you were with somebody while you were in this mindset.
No, that was before that.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
was in university. And so after that relationship ended, I felt like, okay, I need to mature a lot before I get into a serious relationship again. So that's my rationale for going MGTOW.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And during this period, when you say mature a little bit, I mean, what do you mean by that? Was it something that you were just, I guess, like, were you like working on yourself? Was it personal development? Was it building your wealth? Was it
Yeah.
even trying to grow as a man? Like, what was
Yeah.
it?
It was mainly to do with economics, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was university student, or yeah, it was university student to late almost graduating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you don't feel like you're ready to for all of that responsibility yet. And also there's the financial aspect. Starting a family is increasingly more expensive in today's world. And so there was a lot to consider there. I wasn't gonna just get married right out of university.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, comparatively speaking, like what would you, I guess, like when it comes to like uh building, when we talk about economics here, when we talk about just like building your wealth and that kind of a thing, like how many years did you do that for? And I guess what made you decide to, I guess, now take a different direction?
Right. Yeah. I think it was about almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years?
Yeah. Almost 10 years before. And then that's when I was like, okay, yeah, now's the time to get married. So, do you have any super chats? Bill is here. I have to open the door.
No. As a matter of fact, it's kind of a low viewer count tonight, but I just want to say, hey, everyone, thanks for joining us because it's late, but it's okay. We can keep talking, and then, whoever joins. And yes, to address a few of you guys in the chat, yeah, we'll definitely talk a little bit about the New York abortion law. Hey, how's it going? Unapologetically Pappas, thanks for joining us from the Philippines. I know sometimes I'm not very good at reading the chat simply because I'm fixated on the conversation, but thank you guys for joining us. We're going to dive into a lot of different topics tonight, specifically centered around the gender divide and whether it's, the war on masculinity, politics as well. There's just seemingly a lot of people right now when it comes to just the, in the eve of the Gillette ad and everything, and the push for a lot of female presidential candidates from the left, from the Democratic Party. That's essentially what we're going to be talking about and expanding on a little bit. But I have with me today the Asian capitalist. Hey, Bill, how's it going? Good to see you.
Hey.
Well, you weren't as late as you were last time, so I'll give you props for that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got a lot of shit in my hands.
Okay. So we were just talking about economics. So I just want to get this point out that a lot of people like to complain about the gender wage gap.
Right.
It's well known that women don't like to date men who make less money than them.
Mm-hmm.
So we should actually be thankful for the gender wage gap still existing, because if ever the average woman made as much money as the average man, there would be barely any dating happening.
Well, it's barely any dating is already happening.
Yeah.
Wait, can you explain that for a second? We should be thankful for the gender wage gap because of the fact that, say that again, I kind of was trying to process that for a second.
The average woman does not want to date a man who makes less money than her.
Right.
We should be thankful that there is still a proportion of men who make more money than the average woman. And if we look at millennials right now, actually, millennial women are actually out earning millennial men.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's directly correlated to some of the stats that are going on right now.
Yeah.
As far as student debt is concerned, right, 2/3 of the student debt is primarily on the shoulders of women. And that's not a thing. That also goes to show that women now are actually, as a whole, more educated than men, going to college and everything. And you could argue and say that based on those stats alone that they are going and getting better jobs than men. But the problem is there are certain industries, right, when we talk about gender pay and everything, that usually does not get considered, like manufacturing. dangerous jobs, right? Things that there's high liability, high collateral, which is why you get paid more.
Well, like, stuff like mining, stuff like sewage,
Yeah,
dealing with raw sewage.
right. Micro dirty jobs, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oil industry, war, mercenary.
What do you guys think about whether or not highly educated, high-earning women want to date sewage workers, and even if they're higher earning? Like,
I don't know about that, and I've never encountered anything like that.
I don't think sewage. I don't think they mind. And I'm sure they don't want you going out with their friends like on the night out and talking about your job.
Yeah, that's one thing for sure.
You just if they ask where you work, you just say you're a civil servant.
A civil servant now.
Well, you are. You just don't. You just don't mention the fact that you deal with raw sewage. You do work for the public, though.
I mean, I think when it comes to high income earners, right? I think that there is, aside from the fact that they want men to earn a good amount of money to be providers and everything, there is a certain level of status that also comes with your job, right? So now typically with a job like that, you may not start off making that much amount of money, right? Just like a plumber doesn't start off making a lot of money, but a plumber who's kind of gone through the ranks and, you went to trade school and everything. You're not obviously like a master plumber. You can't have your own thing. You're still kind of apprentice because you apprentice for like 5 years. That's something to keep in mind too, right? So my question to you is this:
well, that's if you pass all your tests in between every year too. If you fail a test in between, your journeyman period becomes a bit longer.
Yeah, no, definitely. But so I mean, like, there's things like that to take into context, and I don't think that there's any real shortage of jobs in that sector for women. So when women complain about the fact that there aren't good high-paying jobs, as a matter of fact, this is where it's crazy, right? Women are actually incentivized to go into those trade jobs. Like, you actually probably will earn more as a female carpenter and welder than a male carpenter and welder.
Hey, our friend, the electrician, he mentioned this huge program in some Scandinavian country. Was it Norway?
Probably.
No, I think Norway. Don't quote me on it, but Norway basically they pour millions of dollars into basically social engineering project where they're trying to get each gender to go against their natural inclinations, where like they're trying to fund men to go into nursing. They're trying to fund women to go into STEM.
Are they incentivizing them to go into it, or are they just creating the programs more accessible for them?
No, they're incentivizing them. They're like actually like they're giving them more grants or whatever.
And it didn't work out.
No, it worked out. For as much, they worked out for as long as they kept pouring money into it.
Okay.
And as soon as they're like, okay, we've fixed society. It's time to take away the money because we don't need to keep paying for a program that you don't have to keep paying for the program because we fixed the gender problem. And then as soon as they put the plug on the money, everything went back to the way it was before.
Really? So I guess there are just natural inclinations that men and women have towards certain particular jobs, right? So in this case, nursing, it's more of a caregiving type job, nurturing type job, which women are more inclined to be in, even though that's not a blanket rule. And with the other aspect of jobs that are probably more predominantly male, as they have been throughout history, that's just the case, right? So when the incentive is taken out, then men and women naturally drift into these types of jobs. Would you agree?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with what kind of job would you be happier in as well.
Yeah,
like, you can't socially engineer a preference. That's just due to who we were born as and how we were raised. We're gonna have different inclinations.
Right. So see a lot of the typical fields of study that women go into, like psychology and sociology, education, that kind of a thing, that tends to have, like, I guess, more lower paying yield. Yeah.
Except HR pays a lot.
What's that?
Except HR pays a lot.
Well, I used to be in HR, but you are right. HR is an industry that is 70% women. So that there's some truth to that. I mean, that's the thing, right? I think where the disconnect is with a lot of people who advocate for equal pay is just the aspect that when it comes to the fields of study, what they fail to take into account is that some of these jobs are not very high paying jobs, right? So there's an aggregate amount of earnings that are going to be considerably less than men.
Now,
And-
I want to ask something. When they calculate the wage,
Mhm.
do they take into account overtime? And
Yeah, I mean, no, it does.
Whatever you
It's overall time worked, right, for whatever your earnings are. So that takes into account time off that you take, sick time, overtime hours worked, and everything. And men put in more hours than women. That's not me being,
well, I know all about putting in extra time.
Right. It's just that's what the data tells us. And this is not me saying this. You can look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Department of Labor. These are all things that actually most employers have to report to the government, you know.
Now, here's the thing. This talking point has been repeated over and over again by every conservative outlet. But the left still doesn't care, still doesn't listen, and they still harbor this resentment towards the quote unquote patriarchy. So what's our next strategy? What's our next move now that this move has failed?
Well, what do you guys think the next move is?
Whoa, you're frozen.
I'm not frozen. Am I?
Not anymore, you don't.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Did you
You were gonna say something and you froze.
Oh, what I said was, what do you think the solution is?
Oh.
Well, what do you think the solution is?
I haven't thought that far ahead.
I think. Well, I think I don't even know why we keep trying to argue with them. Like, if we're engaged directly, if there's to destroy them, but
it doesn't matter.
Why would no? But it's just that you can't have them win face to face, or in any way. Anytime you see them do it, shut them down.
Yeah.
But it really does nothing. Like, if you they're not going to listen. It's an inconvenient truth. They're just going to ignore it, like the Norway experiment. If you go talk to the Norwegians about it, they're going to pretend it didn't happen. They're going to make up some excuse.
Because I think that some of this resentment that women have for men is one of the factors that is leading to the quote unquote gender war that's taking place.
Right. So I think,
but it's another one of those things. Is like, when does it stop? Like, when does reparation stop? Like, how much? Even if something, some misconduct has been done, there's got to be a point when you say, okay, that's enough. We paid back the debt.
Right.
But there is no number. There is no figure.
Yeah.
They just want it to be constantly, never ending, never questioning. And why you want to humor these people?
Okay. So what I'm thinking is to get them to see the fact that, okay, women are naturally more hypergamous. They want to date men, higher status men. They want to date men who make more money than them. So if they could see that point, if they could see it from that perspective, then they no longer see the wage gap as such an issue. That's what I'm hoping.
That's actually not going to work. That's going to be actually the worst thing ever. Especially the feminists are going to hate it.
Yeah, of course.
Because it forces them to actually have to compete based on feminine standards, in which case feminists are like the soy boys. They can't compete in their own gender's game. That's why they turn to feminism.
Well, when you say that, if that really was the case, then it would just be back to the fact that women would just marry men that make a lot of money, right? By that logic.
The issue is, like, nobody makes a lot of money anymore, I guess.
It seems like this is now a matter of how do we get the average woman to separate from the feminists, so that they no longer listen to them.
Well, I just think it's a self-solving issue. Like, this whole Marxism axis is causing the world to crash and burn, and once the world does crash and burn, feminism and other ideologies that require others people's money is going to crash and burn with it. Like, we don't have to kill feminism. It's does that well enough on its own in the long run.
Well, the crash and burn is kind of a risky proposition because they have a lot of institutional power right now. So in the crash and burn scenario, we might not necessarily win. So there is that scenario where
How would they?
if the left wins, then
How would they
we-
even win? Everything they need require money.
yeah, but they own all the institutions.
Yeah,
And you know who's got money? Papa Soros.
Yeah, but
Papa Soros got all their money.
Yeah,
See, like, let's say let's put it this way. Once let's say Soros got his money in every country's currency. But he mostly, let's say, has it in the U.S. because we do most business in U.S. dollar.
right.
If the U.S. defaults for whatever reason,
He's got Rothschild on speed dial though. He's got the IMF on speed dial. Hey guys, want to send some money to this leftist cause over here? We're about to take over America. So the Democratic Socialists of America about to take over. We just need $5 billion.
$5 billion or what?
Wired. The IMF is going to control international currency either way.
I don't. I doubt that. Not. We already see countries breaking away from this international monetary system.
And here's the other thing: we don't know if China is playing IMF game or not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a little further down the line for me. I don't think I've invested.
Right, we're getting into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that the main thing is this, and this is something that I've believed in with the individual, right? I think that when it comes to just the attack on men, as far as how screwed up the family and court system is, and just how, I guess, vengeful and spiteful feminists have become, I can see that there are a lot of good reasons for why men should embrace masculinity, hold on to it, and continue to work on themselves. I mean, that's something that I've always advocated for, and I think that that's something that a lot of men, I can't say a lot because I'm only looking at it in terms of conservative echo chambers. With conservative echo chambers, I think a lot of men agree that, you know, they need to still be a man and essentially embrace their masculinity in a way that's going to obviously help them better themselves, right? The thing about how it happens in the left with men is that, you know, there was this recent article that I was just reading about how to become women's ally, right? Support them through all of this and everything. And you're essentially not helping it because by doing that, you kind of take out of the equation what it is that they're pushing, right? It's kind of like, because of how women are, I feel like not all women want to be with men, right? But when it comes down to the women who genuinely feel like they want to have a man at the end of the day, that's the type of man that they're going to go for. I mean, if we're talking about hypergamy here, it's like you have to be a man, exuberate these masculine traits, and have your stuff together. Like I believe that fundamentally, and that's all men basically need to do, right? So when it comes to a temporary withdrawal from women, I understand that completely. I wouldn't say that that's something that I practice, but it comes down to the individual, in my opinion, because it's kind of like collectivism is the reason why a lot of these things don't happen the way they do. It just doesn't, right? It can't be groupthink. It has to be individual men have to work on themselves. We've seen what group thinking and collectivism has done to people. It doesn't really help solve problems. It just kind of puts them all into think tanks, right? And you could argue and say that in more socialist type countries, that hasn't worked. And when we play identity politics or gender politics, that doesn't work, right? We just understand that there are differences between men and women. But when it comes to men, like, I think men need to do their own thing. They need to focus on themselves.
Well, you just mentioned the conservative echo chamber side of things, but and I find it there's a interesting note that about the attitude they have. It's like a lot of conservative circles would. The answer to this attack on masculinity is man up and marry those sluts.
Is that so?
Yeah. So especially the Christian circles, they're like, okay, well, someone's gonna have to take care of these people.
Okay. Do they actually say that, or is it implied?
It's implied.
Okay.
It's like you have to take responsibility. Go marry that single mom. And that's the thing is a lot of men's circle, like the MGTOW circle, and a large group of the weebs are like, why should we take responsibility for a society that scorns us?
Right. I mean, I can see somewhat where they're coming from, but like, again, I don't think there's a definite answer, right? That's just my take on the matter. I think that, like, the point of MGTOW that I see that makes sense, even though I'm not one personally, is it should be about the fact that you need to improve yourself. And why get so fixated and hung up over a lot of those things that you can't control? Just be the best version of you can be, right?
Mhm.
And maybe I haven't thought this through enough, but I don't know what the answer, the solution is, except for what I need to do as a man to be better, right? To navigate this world.
I think what I'd like to add is that, so it seems like we've kind of highlighted two things. The
Mhm.
dating pool for women now is shrinking because men are making less, and that gender pay gap in the millennial generation is disappearing. And
Mhm.
similarly, the dating pool for men now is shrinking because women are being so slutty, and the high partner counts leads to, it's been shown in study after study that high partner counts makes you less able to pair bond.
Yeah, you're less likely to have a successful, stable, long-term relationship.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
think sleeping around that much generally is not good for your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I think Molyneux pointed that out like
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, and it kind of just like opened my eyes to it.
Yeah.
But it kind of takes it back to more of the traditional values,
Yeah.
traditional type.
So there's not that many marriable men anymore. There's not that many marriable women anymore. So
And the sex bots are on the horizon.
Oh yeah, or video
I'm
games.
here to save us
Mhm.
all, I think.
Well, here's the thing that I also want to throw into this, right? There's also a compounded lack of self-accountability and instant gratification, instant validation with pornography. I was just talking to somebody on a previous stream about this, about how like you combine all of that and men essentially don't even have to try anymore. It's just like it feels like most of your sensible basic needs get met. And as opposed to like wanting to work for a woman, right? You can just resort to something that's instant and easy, which also kind of keeps the vicious cycle going, because then you're just like less likely to want to improve. Like you're less likely to want to go out and meet women because you indulge in those things. There's
Well,
that.
should the solution be men should improve for their own sake rather than for women?
I think it should be for your own sake, not for a woman, because clearly
We could still work on ourselves and do what we improve at things we love
yeah.
and we're interested in without having to work for an old lady, right? Like we could aim to amass wealth and prestige for
Mhm.
ourselves rather than to chase women.
Yeah. And generally for a lot of the men who focus on that, they find that it's their focus is not on women, and it just happens to them as they go about their lives, like whether they want to or not. Believe me, when you get to that point where you've built wealth and you've gotten to a place of a degree of success or significance, you are spoiled for choice at that point.
See, like as a famous man once said, disregard bitches, acquire currency.
Who said that?
Remember, it's someone said that.
I mean, I've heard it so many times
for a while, like circa 2012-ish.
Yeah. But also, I think that there's just some truth to that, and I think that the accountability still has to fall on men. Like, I think a lot of also what I noticed recently, right, is that I made a remark about how there's just a lot of like female red pilled people, which I think is fine. I think when women recognize that, that's a good thing. But I also think that like a lot of men actually get really, really vehemently angry, right? That I guess a lot of women on the internet are funded very easily because of their good looks, right? That it's just like they have Patreon accounts, they have PayPals. There's that whole thought audit, that kind of thing that happened last Thanksgiving. And the way I'd look at that is there's the people that are funding that is essentially men, right? A lot of like beta orbiters, a lot of simps that are doing that. And when men get like angry about that, like it makes me think, because it's like not like you don't have to do that. Like you giving her money does not get you any closer to that woman. So there's also that aspect, right? It divides men and women even further, because now it's like why would I even have to be in a relationship? Why would I even have to get married if I can just put myself out there and men will just give me money?
Mhm.
And then, like there are women that have premium Snapchat accounts, right? Patreons, Twitter.
Well, that's the thing is, I feel like these. I'm not saying that they shouldn't make money with the assets they have. It's just
I'm not.
We talked about this. Is I feel like none of these women have an end game. Like, and that's the worst part is when you're able to earn but have no end game. Because during the Todd audit, the when the right wing tax squads basically reported this one woman. She posted some angry rant somewhere. I think it was Twitter. Don't quote me. Basically saying that because she has to repay this tax, which is not even that much money, it's like a few $1,000s, she has to go into debt. And I'm like, dude, like, how do you make so much money and not have that much money put away? Like, do you just spend all of it? Like, where does it go? Do you just have a a fucking can out in your backyard? You throw it in, you just light a match. Like, what happens to all the money you make?
You've made a 6-figure income without paying taxes for years, and now that the IRS is coming after you, you have no money to pay. It's kind of ridiculous.
Like, I don't quite understand. Like, as in, yeah, no, they're very high earners, and being a capitalist, I agree with people using whatever they have to earn money. It's just where are these people going to be in 30 years? Like, if you're not saving a dime that you're making now.
That's a good point. I mean, most people in America are not saving or effectively in debt. That's not a,
But that's fine. Like, I understand that. Like, it's hard to save, especially if you're earning minimum wage, you got 3 kids, or like you got a bunch of financial obligation you have to take care of. But there's no reason for these people to not be saving or have a contingency fund if they're making so much money.
Right. No. I mean, that's definitely the case, and I think that it's I'm of that as well. I just think that because there's a lot of things going on here, right? When that way of making money is also like being introduced, like back to the tax thing, right? That's where like the personal responsibility has to actually be you have to be more diligent, right? Because it's like the government, it's not like you work for an employer and they deduct your taxes before they pay you. Like, that's where you have to be disciplined and like do it yourself. And I think when you compound that with the commodity of being able to just get donations from people, see, that's also another confusing thing, is because it's not really earned income. It could be donations as well, which is probably why a lot of people have been able to get away with that. But like, I mean, if it's a saving thing, I mean, that's just decision making at the end of the day.
I think what it comes down to is irresponsible young women being irresponsible.
Yeah, I mean, to put it simply, that's essentially what it is. So,
well, my argument to the two things about the whole, like, well, it's a gift thing is like, well, either being a camper is a respectable occupation, or so therefore you should be taxed, or it's not a real job, you're unemployed, and it's gifts. And,
yeah,
and you know, there's been a lot of like push for campers to basically say no, we it's a respectable career, and I'm like, well, like that's fine, you make a lot of money, I could see that you arguing this point, but if it's a career, if it's a job, then that's income,
right?
Gifts. And
well, yeah. I mean, I see where I was just gonna shift gears real quick. What did you guys think about the whole like Gillette ad? Do you want to talk about that a little bit and the impact that that's had?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's forcing the normie's hand.
Normie?
Your average everyday person.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For years, the normie has ignored the plight of their brothers on us meme lord and shitlords and chads. They've ignored our plight. They pretended this whole feminism scam isn't hurting us. They do it just because it's easy. They don't have to fight for a cause that's inconvenient to the mainstream, and they won't be ostracized for it.
Right.
So when and they can do that because there's a lot of ways they could just avoid being part of the conflict. But now, as it's pushing into your fucking like, how many adult men don't shave? Like it's become it's invaded some of the most integral parts of their lives, the normie's life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say yes. It is a net gain overall. Not a lot, but certain people have started realizing, oh, they're attacking men. But at the same time, it is very frustrating to see a lot of your normie Facebook friends not give a damn, or even make fun of conservatives for being snowflakes about the Gillette ad.
Well, I mean, how do you really expect a lot of people who aren't conservatives and aren't, I guess, pro masculinity to react, right? A lot of them are just going to be like, yeah, that's how men are supposed to react. I mean, it's just, I think that a lot of the actions that were perpetuated in the ad is essentially just like what feminine men would essentially do, right? Yet, I just think that it's just, I think for me, the most part, I look at it as actually feminist propaganda. And here's the thing: like, if you look into the history of it, like the director of the ad is a staunch feminist. You know, like her name's Kim Gary. You can look her up. She basically, like, one of her films was about like vulvas or whatever. I don't know. Staunch feminist, right? And it's like, when you look at the ad and you look at it in the form, and I heard this on a Red Man Group episode, there's no call to action. There's no razors, right? It's not an advertisement. If it was an advertisement, there would be an aspect for what Gillette is pushing forward. It's not. It's propaganda. It almost seems like a Super Bowl infomercial, right? Meant to kind of reach out to millions of people and get them to realize that this is the case, that there is a genuine shift as to what they think the ideal man should be. Because that's the whole phrase of Gillette. It's like, this is the best a man can get, right? So highlighting the attributes of what an ideal man would be.
Do you think that we on the right responded the right way, or could we have handled it better?
I think we responded to it like instinctually. I think there's always a better way to handle things. I personally always think that, especially if it's not being emotionally reactive to things. But I think that responding kind of with a little bit of disgust and kind of going, okay, well, I don't agree with that. I think that that's normal. But that's really all I mean, that's my take on the aspect. Because the thing is, I look at that incongruence, right, with the with the elections coming up next year. What has sort of happened in just recent months with the Kavanaugh hearings, you know, leading up to like the Women's March, and at the same time, you know, the announcement of Democrat presidential candidates. The prominent ones are predominantly female, right? We're talking Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard. Mm-hmm. It's like there are male ones running, like Andrew Yang, that Asian guy, which I'll actually ask you guys about. Okay. But like that, like, I feel like it's all part of just a push, right? Like, I don't think the Democrats are going to select like a male presidential candidate for the primary. I just don't think so, because they're still playing this game. Because Hillary lost the last one, they're still trying to fill that. They're still trying to put.
They are trying to roll Beto O'Rourke out.
Yeah, I mean, there's chance that he could, but it's like.
And I think Bernie is going to announce this week too.
See, like, is this normal? Like, because I look at the roster, it feels like they have 1 million candidates, and like it seems like more than usual as well.
Yeah, it's chaos. It's a sign of chaos.
Well, I mean, there's levels to it, right? There's like officially announced, thinking about it, considering it, and you won't really know until like the real election season rolls around and they start to select their ideal candidate for the primaries, right? So it's just like, I mean, that tends to happen. There's like 10 people. Like, I get it. I get that that's the case.
Is what's his face? Reed still?
Who?
Former vice president.
Oh, Joe Biden?
Maybe Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a possibility. Yeah, he might run, but I'm not really sure. I actually, to be honest with you guys, I haven't been keeping up with it as much.
That's pretty sad.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, like, personally for you guys as men, like, what are your takes on? I mean, I don't think that, I mean, Jeff, you're married, right? And Bill, I'm sure that, I mean, I don't know if you're married or not, but like, I mean, what are the aspects for us as Asian men going forward? Because this is where it cuts down to the meat and potatoes. Like, what do we do as Asian men? Like, even though I don't want to play the identity politics game, it's like, how is it for you guys?
Well, you go first. So I need some time to formulate my ideas because I haven't eaten yet.
So this is our advice columns. So yeah, I'm very good at thinking of questions and problems and pointing at problems. But when it comes to solutions, it takes a while.
That's all right. I mean, that's why we're having this discussion. Bring it on a Friday night.
Well, I think, like I said, I feel like we should just the left has gotten so ridiculous, like with the advent of people like Macho Man, Tranny Savage, and Super Soyan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Gillette ads.
Yeah.
It's just a constant stream of.
Yeah, I guess that's where the optimism should come from. It's that they're just gonna keep getting more ridiculous anyway. There's no stop to that.
There's the left currently operates on one model, which is the victim Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
You always have to be more victim than the next guy. So therefore, it's a contest to be more and more ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And it will showcase to the normie that the left is far gone and would only viable choice.
Mm-hmm. And
a lot of times we should even encourage them.
Yeah.
Like when they're being ridiculous, we should go and stir up some shit. Like
it should be like, yes, Queen, slay. Keep going.
Are you talking about Asian men here, or are you talking about just
No, talking about leftists.
Oh,
when
leftists.
They're ridiculous. We should egg them on to be even more ridiculous.
I think that they're doing that to themselves. Right? I mean, you heard about what happened with the Women's March. It was canceled because not enough diversity. There was too many white women.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. It's like their extremities is being pushed by their own. It's not
like at this point when that's happening. We should get Splinter Cells to go in and just say, hey, like like what, like white women aren't women. Sow divisions, get people pissed off at each other because at the end of the day. We can't. We gotta just show people how stupid things are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think that they're already doing that, right? And here's the thing: I gotta always say this, and it's not because I'm trying to take pot shots at a particularly a demographic of people, but like say transgender people, right? This is something that I usually will always ask people on the left. It is like say a man, biological male, decides to identify as a woman. Right, but decides to not go on hormones and everything because you can do that. You can decide not to go on hormones, identify as a woman, and like competes in sports or competes in predominantly female-run events or whatever, and like completely slays. Right, just has an unfair advantage because of biology.
Or if you're just in the TSA and you're getting a pat down, just tell them you identify as a woman and you need to be pat down by a woman.
Yeah. Right. And what I'm saying is like
identify as a woman, sir.
Yeah, when that happens, my question is always like, where's the male privilege in this? Right? It's like, does that woman have male privilege because of this? Like, at what point? Like, I fail to see the congruency usually with a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because there isn't. Like, it's just a race to see how you can justify yourself as a bigger victim than the person you're arguing against.
Right. If you have a bigger sob story, essentially people are going to be more believing of that, and we go off of that. We go off of emotion, not facts and everything. So I think that the left is going to do that to themselves. We don't have to necessarily point it out any further, other than what is already being done, because it's already happening. Like, here's the thing. Like,
what's the fun if we don't go in there and start a little shit? So a little chaos.
I just feel like I have better things to do than to. I mean, I guess if I participated in rallies and everything, that would be my own thing. But like, the left is already in itself kind of they're not dying because they're always being pushed by somebody. But it's like a lot of the stupidity is already out there. I just don't think that they care. That's the thing, is like, even no matter how many memes or exposing or anything that you do, I think the left is just going to remain like the left. It doesn't matter. Looking stupid doesn't matter anymore. That woman that was misidentified in a gamer store that went crazy, that trans woman, I don't think they care. I think leftists look at their own videos and realize like it doesn't matter. Like, you cannot like reason with some of these people sometimes, because there's like Democrats, there are people that vote Democrats that are like liberals that are somewhat sensible. I disagree with them a lot, but then we can talk. And then there are people that are just flat out delusional. And like here's one thing I'll tell you guys. Like you guys saw that recent thing with child drag culture, right? With this guy Desmond Desmond is amazing or whatever, and he's like posing with like a naked man. I mean, it's like a pedophile's wet dream. Like it's like, and they're okay with that. This is on the front cover of Vice. So it's like even if you scream, you know, ethics or whatever, right? It doesn't matter because it's drag culture, because it's that's just where we're in right now. So like that's the thing. I think they know all this, the stupidity that we talk about. They just don't care.
All right, so this is you brought up a point. Like it's a mental blind spot I had this whole time. Is what if they realize, but they don't care?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, they don't care.
But okay, so here's the thing though. Like, do they have an end game? Like, do they believe that this is just gonna they could do all of this and then one day that they could live like a normal person? Do they ever have any ambition?
I would. Person? For me, if I were them, I would want one. But the thing is, they keep moving the goalposts. They never know. Here's the thing: when you usually ask a leftist, like, define like white privilege, right? Define what kind of reparations you need. It's usually one thing on top of another thing on top of another thing. There's no defined goals. You know what I mean? Like they say, oh, the system's broken. How do we fix the system? Oh, we get more people here. Oh, but it doesn't matter because America has always been an oppressive country. And, you know, it's just like, it's an endless circle of like, even if you give them reparations, which we've done through legislation, like affirmative action and diversity quotas and, you know, fair and equal treatment, to the point where if you're a leftist and you are of a particular victim status, you can get away with saying whatever you want. And it's like, where does it end? Like, what more do you want?
1 mile and they'll take 3 miles. You give them the 3 miles, they'll take 10 miles.
Well, what I mean,
they'll circle the globe 10 times, and it'll never be enough.
Yeah.
What I mean is not.
Oh, you guys froze.
These people. No, you're frozen.
What would have happened? Yeah, sorry about that, you guys. Go ahead.
These people are. Despite the fact that I don't want to admit it, these people are also people.
Right.
They must have their own goals and futures that they envision themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
And do you for example, okay, let's. When I was young, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna spend a few years, my 20s, my early teens, my late teens and 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Being somewhat of an outlaw, and then after my 30s, I'm gonna live like a normal person after that. Do they have such goals?
Here's what I think. It's because some of these people are genuinely broken people. They're in search of something to fill that void inside of their soul.
Yeah.
That's why when you give something, given to one of their demands, they realize, oh shit, this doesn't fill my soul. I need more. And that's what's going on here.
Well, yeah. And I think
it's just a gaping vagina.
Yeah.
No, it's here's the thing. If the sole reason for why you are in shambles, right, is contingent on somebody else, you'll never be happy. Like, it's that basic rule. If you are not happy and you think that there's no amount of equal outcome, opportunities, socialist policies, reparations that somebody could pay to fulfill that. Because where does the buck end, right? You can only give so much, and if that person is fundamentally not at peace with what they have, they'll never be happy. It's kind of like people who are in miserable marriages, right? It's kind of like the same deal. I see a lot of congruencies with that. It's just not they're fundamentally miserable people. Like,
so these people are all just praying for the sweet release of death, but then they're in order to stave off the inevitable, they're trying to just shove random shit into that hole inside of their soul, or better known as vagina, to fill the void. And you're saying, and so basically you're saying they have no end game. They don't have a time when they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna have my fun now, and I'm gonna do something else eventually.
They think that something is gonna fill that void. They think in the end, fully automated luxury gay space communism is going to fill that void in their soul.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't think it will.
Well, they want socialism, right? So there's things that typically a lot of people on the left push for, which is like, you know, I guess nowadays the biggest thing is universal basic income, which is basically you get money from the government. That's one thing. You know, Medicare for all and everything. Have the rich people pay their fair share of taxes. Like, there's a lot of these things that just you can easily dispel as being they just don't work, right? And they don't make sense. But it doesn't matter because a lot of them don't really take responsibility for themselves. It's always somebody else's problem. Like, I am oppressed and we can't talk about this because you're a straight white man or you're cisgender white man or you have more privilege than I do. And if you really think about that, because you've kind of eliminated the limitations, the burden of proof or whatever, you can justify anything. If it's subjective, you can justify anything and evidence doesn't matter. Expectations don't even matter. You can keep moving the goalpost as you want. So that's the way I see it. Until personal responsibility and accountability is exercised, people aren't going to fundamentally be happy. Because if your happiness is contingent on certain things that you want, right, and not based on what other people will do, nothing will happen. It has to come from within. And when people talk about socialism and communism, right, collective thinking, that's what they think they want. But it's not going to make them happy. Like, we've seen it time and time again with socialist communist countries. It's never worked, right? Where it's like everyone is equal. Essentially
only not everyone. In those cases, no one
people
ever
in control that are more powerful than the people that work in a particular institution. But it doesn't work because, like, everybody's different. There's equal opportunities, but it's impossible to have equal outcome. That's the thing. You have equal opportunity. There's no equal outcome because, unfortunately, no one is equal in as far as a blank slate. And the fact of the matter is, like, look at genetics, right? It's not distributed equally. Some people are tall, some people are short. Like, you're not going to be in the NBA if you're under 6 feet tall. It's just not going to happen, right? But that's the thing is, like, with leftist behavior, it's a grievance culture where it's kind of like, no, I should be represented in the NBA because I'm 5'6". Like, that's basically the thinking. Or I should be a plus size Victoria's Secret model when there's a standard of beauty that needs to be upheld.
Yeah,
that's the same thing.
There needs to be more Jewish representation in the NFL.
What's that? Yeah, have Jews complained about that? I don't know.
Representation at quarterback.
And that's the thing, right? I heard a recent thing with Ocasio-Cortez. It's kind of why she's very popular amongst a lot of young leftists and everything. The typical spouting thing is you guys are capitalists, right? So you guys can expand on this a little bit more. But, like, the whole, like, the rich people paying their fair share of taxes and, like, that, I feel like, I don't know if we talked about this before, but something that I always want to address, you don't even have to be a leftist, right? You just have to be somebody who looks at numbers to understand this. In fact, a 5-year-old could figure this out, right? Rich people, quote unquote, say millionaires or people who make like $100K a year or more, right? Let's just call it as it is.
Not even that much.
Yeah, which is not even that much, but so-called rich people pay more taxes to the dollar than poor people.
Mm-hmm.
And they always assume that the rich people are stealing from the poor people, yet 80% of rich people, so-called millionaires in North America, are first-generation rich. Mm-hmm. Which means they started with nothing, right? Mm-hmm. People talk about inherited wealth because white people inherit all the wealth, like nobody else can get it or whatever. When we forget that 10% of rich people is inherited wealth, 1% is because you're an entertainer, celebrity, or famous athlete, but 80% is first generation. And when we think about taxes for a second, if you make $100,000 a year, you pay a higher income bracket as far as income tax is concerned than somebody who makes $30,000. Is that fair? It's like you flip it on itself, right? Like, if you make $100,000 a year, you have to pay 40% of that to the IRS. That's what we have here in the U.S. But if you make like $30,000 a year, you pay 30% or 25% of your taxes.
Yeah.
So by the dollar, rich people pay more taxes than poor people.
I actually had a really good argument that didn't involve numbers.
Yeah, I don't hear it
extremely well because it doesn't. It proves them wrong without telling them that they're wrong. what happened? We were talking about tax against socialism, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and once again, my friend's suggestion of raising taxes on the rich people came up,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, you know, if they raise the taxes, it's not going to be on the rich people. It's going to be on me and you, like the middle class. That's what they're going to destroy. And he's just like, no, that's not how it works. Like that socialism will work. I'm like, okay, let me put it this way. Do you believe that the elites run the world? And being a socialist, he said yes. You know, like, you know, rich people run everything. I'm like, if the elites run the world and rich people own everything, why would they raise taxes on themselves?
It's a good point.
And he's just, if they're ever gonna raise taxes to fund shit, it will be me and you paying. Like, and there was no answer.
Yeah, they fundamentally don't know what they're talking about. I honestly think that a lot of people that buy into this, and I'm talking about like deep-seated progressives here. I'm not talking about like liberals, because there's some sensible liberals out there. I'll be honest. Like I have friends that are classical liberals that are not conservative whatsoever, right? But it's like we can be civilized about it, right? I think that we basically want what we want, and they can see this. But there are some people that you absolutely cannot dispel facts and numbers to. It doesn't matter. It's just, well, it's because of white privilege. It's because of this. That has nothing to do with it. Like, that happens to me all the time. And they're like, well,
I think that's why that argument worked, because it played to everything they believed in to disprove something else they believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Because most leftists do believe that we're run by kind of a corporate oligarchy of bankers and evil billionaires.
Well, we are run by.
Yeah. So that's the one. Yeah, that actually is the one piece of common ground that the far left and the far right have in common.
Yeah.
And not even the far right. I mean, most people on the right probably believe it.
Man, that's where when we want to bring it back to the conversation about the individual, that's where I think that you fundamentally still have a choice, right? When we think about something like democracy, yeah, you can pay more money for a certain representative or elected member, elected politician to get more exposure and everything because they have more funding by wealthy elites, but you can't buy democracy, right? Like, we still live in a world.
Well, you can't buy real democracy.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you still have a vote. You still vote for these people. You still vote for certain types of legislation that you believe in that will affect real change to go through. And that's where I usually tell people is, like, focus on your value, like vote your values, right? And everybody should do the same. Identify with the values that you believe in and vote them, because you still have that. And you're right about the common ground about, you know, people who are in control of censorship, right? In control of the flow of information. But ultimately, you can still vote. You still have a voice, right? It's contingent on how well they control you if they don't. Because if they didn't control you, they wouldn't have any power. This is where, weirdly enough, Alex Jones kind of makes sense. Like,
now, based on what you're saying, what's your opinion on what's happening in Sweden then?
I mean, I'm not too familiar with Sweden. Are you talking about like the multiculturalism aspect, or
the election? Last federal, I don't know what they call it, but it's basically a federal election. They basically the populists, the right-wing populists, got a huge boom in support.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten enough support that no government could truly be formed without them. And this is happening in Sweden. Very, very surprising. Nobody knew expected this to happen.
I don't know much about it, but can you tell me more about it? Because I'll be honest, I'm a little ignorant on Sweden, except for Islam. But go ahead.
Basically, because of the multiculturalism, a party called the Swedish Democrats got voted in, which is a populist, anti-immigration, right-wing party, which has the likes of Sweden has never seen in decades.
Right.
Nobody expected this to happen because Sweden's government works based on coalitions.
Mm-hmm.
a government can they've won in Swedish Democrats have won enough votes that no government could be formed without them.
Right.
And because of that, they've had no effective government for about 6 months, I think, 5 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Government has not been formed until recently. The conservatives, like the center right, ended up telling the constituents to fuck you, we're going to join the left just so the Swedish Democrats can't get into government. So this is a clear case of people voting for the center right because they believe in the values of the center right, and then the party betrays them and sides with the left just so the populists can't have their way.
I mean,
is it and like what's your opinion on this clear case of I voted my ideals and then they fucked me?
Well, then you got played. I mean, yeah, like I don't know what else to say to that. That sucks. Consider this also, though.
I think that's a good thing overall because that means next election the Swedish Democrats will get even more votes. They'll get the votes of the disenfranchised center right.
People. Yeah. I mean, I think that number one, we have to think about how our government and electoral system is set up, right? It's set up a little bit differently. That I believe that because of different representatives, like here's the thing: Sweden has the population of Memphis. It's a socialist country, 300,000 people, and it's like I'm not saying you can get away with that because again, I'm fairly ignorant on Sweden, but you can't compare that to 300 million people that live in the United States, right? Each with its own state legislature, state government, and everything, representatives that feed into just the overall country of who we decide to put into office. I think that it's like you can't get away with that, I don't think, in our government as easily as far as elections.
Let's hope so, because I'm not talking about Sweden specifically. I was just talking about the case of believing in democracy, voting your ideals, and then getting fucked over.
Well, I think the flaws of democracy is a huge topic. It's going to be I have a lot to say on the flaws of democracy because I don't really.
I mean, we have
questioning your religion.
Well, that's where our Second Amendment comes into place. Like that's what our founding fathers was in our Constitution. If our government were to get to the point where it betrays us, right? We have the right to self-preservation from tyranny. You have the right to assemble. You have the right to bear arms, all of that kind of stuff, and essentially overthrow a tyrannical government. That's written verbatim. You can do that, right? And I don't know much about how the Constitution has, I guess, affected. Like again, this is where like I'm a little bit ignorant on just the aspect of how our government works to prevent that. But there are measures in place. There are articles that are put into the Constitution that I guess effectively would prevent that from happening because the founding fathers see that. They've seen how tyranny affects government and they devised a system so that the people could essentially take back control if something like that were to ever happen. But you might have to correct me on that. I mean, it's not something that I know.
So, since we're on the topic of the right to bear arms, Second Amendment, guns.
Is it okay if we jump from topic to topic?
Yeah, it's open dialogue.
I know it's gender wars. So.
You can switch it up. You can ask me anything.
Imagine what would be happening in France right now if they had guns, they had the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
France?
Yeah. It's been running for 11 weeks.
I mean, I'm not sure. Give me some context.
Well, Macron's trash fire is burning out of control. He basically raised taxes on raised fuel taxes. But there's already a lot of discontentment with him, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And people have been demonstrating for 11 weeks straight.
Be easier to overthrow, I think, with guns.
Yeah.
It's simple.
No, I don't think he would still be in office if.
I don't think so either. Like,
but He's traveling around Europe right now, right? He's not even in France.
Well, I guess he's gonna have to run the government in exile.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean it's all a real possibility, right? I mean, I don't know. What are Canada's gun laws like? I spoke to somebody from Canada, and you guys, I know you can get carry license. I know that you can actually, this is something that was interesting, that you don't actually have to like consent to showing your face or your real name to get a gun, which is scary.
I haven't heard that.
I haven't heard that either, but I guess it's one of the lesser known rules that nobody really bothers with. Like if you're not a criminal and you're getting a gun, it's most people aren't just gonna go around like they're not gonna go try to get around like showing your face or be getting it in person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but basically in Canada, there's a bunch of restrictions with your gun. When you have it at home, you have to lock it up in the safe. When you bring it out, you cannot make you have to put it in another safe, a smaller safe. So it's directly to the gun range, no stops in between.
You can't even gas.
Yeah.
You can't even gas up your car.
Yeah.
Oh.
And for home invasions, I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to shoot the home invader.
So how do you defend yourself then?
You don't. You say, take my stuff, I'll call the cops and they'll be here in 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, basically, I think there was there's something ridiculous that happened about like 10 years back. Is someone a burglar went to rob a house.
Yeah.
And due to some sort of construction issue that the house had, when the burglar tried to break in, he injured himself like grievously. Like it wasn't even someone trying to like defend himself. It was like the guy hurt himself breaking in, and then he sued the guy, and he actually like won.
The burglar.
Yeah. I'm like,
he broke into the guy's house, hurt himself, and then sued the person he was breaking into because he hurt himself in his house, even though he was trespassing.
I'm like, what do you want me to? What do you want the guy to do? Install safety handrails on the roof for burglars? Like,
that's ridiculous.
It is. It's
that's the thing. There are loopholes even in our legal system that allow for things like that to happen. It's just like he tried to get away, but then he got his foot ran over by a car, and now he's suing the guy. You know, it's just like you weren't supposed to be there in the first place. You were attempting to break in, attempted theft, right? Like, I mean, that's a compelling case because I heard a recent thing back. It was kind of a small town thing where something like that actually did happen, where it's like somebody tried to steal someone's car, but then he started his car, hit the gas, and like ran over the guy's foot, right? And then the guy who tried to steal his car was just like, dude, you ran over my foot and now I'm suing you. But it's like, you tried to steal my car. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I think like that was, I could mark that instant, the burglar injury lawsuit incident as my patriotism for Canada. That was the start of the spiral downward. I just after that I was like, I can't reconcile this. This is stupid.
Yeah, but no, I mean it's just one of those loopholes in our.
I know we like talk a lot of shit about China, but at least in China, like, you know, if someone robs you, you can beat him to half to death, and he can't do anything about it.
Yeah, but I have my reasons for. Well, not really. It's just. China, like that's the thing. Mainland China is not a home for me. Like, I mean, I've lived in Shanghai, and I guess it is. I have home base there. I mean, like I see it as a form of home, but as far as like values and even just like ethnicity type stuff, I always like tell people like Malaysian and everything, right? Like I'm not mainland Chinese, and I think a lot of people don't. I don't think you guys even feel the same way, right?
You don't. Well, I don't.
Yeah,
but,
mainland Chinese and Chinese people who live elsewhere are radically different. Radically different. Like even if you come from Singapore and you're Chinese, you are nothing like mainland Chinese people. Even if you're from Hong Kong, you're nothing like mainland Chinese people.
Yeah, absolutely. We have this joke in Hong Kong.
Well,
actually.
Hong is hate like mainlanders.
Yeah, but we have this joke. So Mandarin is called 普通话, right? And then in Cantonese, it's called 普通话, right? But then in Hong Kong, we don't speak 普通话, we speak 普通瓜, which is to boil a winter melon.
Yeah.
Because we pronounce everything in Mandarin.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I nothing against mainland China, but it's just like there are distinctly archaic cultural constructions in that country that I don't think do any Asians justice. Like, not
I actually barely know anything about the culture of mainland China. So
here's a
maybe
question
explain.
that I have for you guys. Maybe answer afterwards. Is do you guys actually feel at home, truly at home in either Asia or North America?
It's an interesting question because I've had different places in the world that I've lived in. So to answer your question, like, home is very flexible, right? The term itself is malleable, and it doesn't necessarily have one meaning. Like childhood, like kind of like a degree of like comfort, yeah, maybe in Malaysia, but not a lot, right? I feel most at home comfortable here. Even when people ask me, like, you grew up overseas your whole life, like, do you feel at home here? And my answer is yes, even though the United States is kind of like the place cumulatively where I've lived the least amount of time. My values are here, right? I'm an American nationalist. I'm a patriot, like full on. And it's like you can have an understanding of your heritage and feel like your homeland is somewhere else. But that's the thing, is that I'm an American first and foremost, right? That's just my values. And with that comes a sense of this is my country, even though my home could feel like it could be somewhere else. Like, you get what I'm saying? Because like I think like your values and your nationality, right, could be different. Whereas like think refugees for a second, right? Do they consider their new home where they really appreciate their new country home, or their countries that they're running away from? Not that I had the same case, but I just think that it's different. It's circumstantial.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
In my case, when I was a kid, when I was younger, I was extremely patriotic. I like being Canadian, and I was like, in Zach's words, I was a Canadian first and foremost. And I to quote myself back then, is like if China went to war with Canada, I would fight for Canada. But with the recent cultural trends and laws, even that Canada has adopted, I think that patriotism and this sense of belonging has been lost. And currently, if you're talking about which country do I belong to, like what was belonging, is I'm a man with no country.
Yeah.
And home is just when my definition of home is just the place where I keep my shit.
Right.
And until I find a place where that invokes that same sense of
pride,
and basically a place you feel like it's valuable enough to put your life on the line for. I'm a man with no country.
Right. Yeah.
My citizenship, my passport might say Canadian, but I don't feel Canadian anymore.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel that way too. And,
what's the closest alternative?
Right now I'm so far away from the my alternative. It's not even funny. So, but my end game is I would like to be a Swiss national one day.
Swiss national. Okay, Switzerland.
And Jeff is much closer to his goal.
Well,
yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, because this is really cool.
on our
You can
channel.
say it again.
Yeah, it's Hong Kong. I already have my Hong Kong permanent residency, so anytime. Here's the other thing. People always say, okay, you guys should come to the U.S. You guys should get your U.S. citizenship. But the one issue that I have with U.S. citizenship is that it's kind of it's easy to get in, easy-ish to get in, very difficult to get out. Because once you're in the system and once the IRS owns your ass, you have to pay quite a significant fee to get out. And even if you're making money overseas, you still got to pay the IRS.
Yeah, that's definitely true, but there are some exemptions to that. I'll talk about that in a second. Real quick, I want to address Chase Hugh Kill. Thank you so much for your super chat, man. Love your content, Zach. Really appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around. I know it's a late night on a Friday night, late stream, but I appreciate you guys being here and that you guys are having discussions in the chat that are completely separate from what we're talking about. But that's okay. That tends to be how my streams go. I need to get more moderators. Hey, can you guys like comment real quick in the live stream so I can make you guys moderators? I don't have like any moderators. So. Are you guys able to look at the live chat at all?
No, I don't see it.
I'll be right back.
Okay, well, anyways, while Bill's doing that, when you talk about the IRS and everything, it's funny because my dad lived overseas for like 20 plus years, right? And like he was paid in like American dollars, but like he didn't really have to pay taxes. Again, I don't know too much about that, but like you know, it's just like that's just something that I think about, right? IRS like owning a lot. Now again, I'm fairly ignorant on that, but what like that would have to entail if you worked, right? What if you were working outside the country? Like it's just a lot of people do that. You're not. It's only specific to your employer being situated in the United States, I believe.
No, I'm. Or not. What I understand, it's even if you make money outside of the U.S., you still have to report to the IRS, and then I'm not sure how much of it is subject to U.S. tax, but you at least have to report.
I think you're probably right about that. I mean, is that the only thing preventing you from, I guess, considering United States citizenship?
That's one thing. I mean, the other thing is, granted, I haven't been to that many places in the U.S., but the places that I have been to are all leftist shitholes on the West Coast.
In the United States?
Make me, jump at the opportunity.
You talking about like, so what cities in the West Coast have you just like?
Seattle, Portland, LA.
Yeah. Well, okay, those are like the most. Yeah. LA, I don't know. LA has some moderate parts, but Seattle and Portland, those are like the most leftist cities. Like, and San Francisco, you forgot that. But it's just like those three are just like, yeah, don't live there, and it's overpriced too. So, I mean.
Well, I keep telling him I've had fun in Texas and Arizona.
Right.
The other thing about me is like I like big cities.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah. So there's not that many options in the U.S. I like cities that are condensed and easy to, like a lot of walking and not a lot of urban sprawl.
There's a lot. There's actually a lot of choice in terms of that, but none in terms of ones that aren't leftist shitholes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't consider LA very attractive in terms of its urban design because it's so sprawled out.
Yeah, it's not. LA is its appeal is only matched in its reputation through movies and entertainment. Yeah. Other than that, it's not that interesting of a city. There's not really that much to do even. I mean, it's so like different, right? Different. There's like, if you live in Long Beach, there's certain things to do. You live in Irvine, and I know people like the greater LA area that don't go to other areas, right? Don't get me wrong. It's like I got a lot of friends in LA, but it's just like LA is not like that interesting unless you're there for a specific reason.
Yeah.
It's definitely not. I don't think I would move to LA to like, start a family or anything, even if I could or anything. The traffic is horrible. There's a lot of conservatives out in LA. Like, Fox Nation is out there, Daily Wire. Like, there are conservatives. As many liberals as there are in LA, there's as many conservatives and right wingers, right? It's all different.
Why do they always lose?
Yeah. Where are they during the election cycles?
I mean, they vote, but it's like, there's still a ton more leftists and liberals, right? So it's just, when I say there's a lot, it doesn't mean like they're not the majority, right? It's like LA does not have a Republican mayor. It's not. It's just not what it is. I mean, there are congressional representatives that are Republican, but it's like it's not the case. Real quick, while Bill's getting set up, I mean, you guys can also address certain people in the chat if you see something that you want to talk about.
I haven't figured out how to open the chat yet.
There's a chat.
Hey, Joseph,
like,
you guys not live stream at all? I mean, I barely know how to do this right, which is probably why my live streams aren't that great. But it's just I'm still getting used to it. Joseph says, "How do you feel about attending college at Irvine? Is the cost expensive?" I wouldn't know, but Irvine definitely isn't cheap, and I think it's predominantly right. There's a lot of Asians that live out in Irvine. That's all I can really say. Yeah, do you? Go ahead.
Are you sure? Are you sure it's a good choice to attend college in the current year?
Honestly, Joseph, addressing the guy in the chat, I don't think college is the best alternative these days. Coming from me, like if you're a good, able-bodied dude, you'll find a way to get work, unless you like want to study something that will be beneficial, that will pay off, like STEM or something. But like
you gotta in those fields, you gotta be like you gotta work really hard and like in terms of academically, and it's probably rough to be the top in your class.
Yeah, and I don't know.
People.
I'm just a little disenfranchised with the education system in the United States. It's not just because of the liberalism that's polluted basically every academic institution, but just like the fact that like it's so expensive. That's also how they get you, right? That's why a lot of young people buy into socialism, is with the student debt thing, the consolidation of it, debt forgiveness. And it's
if we're going to talk about academia, we should talk about what Chino was telling us.
Chino.
Yeah, so we have a friend who
we chat with. Yeah. He's
I believe it was University of California, Berkeley.
Oh gosh, I used to live near there.
Yeah. Oh, it was a very heavily attended, heavily Chinese.
Yeah, school. Berkeley is like 75% Asian.
Yeah, but basically by his fourth year, the Chinese student population from mainland China was so high
that the TA doesn't speak English.
The TA doesn't speak English, and they had to have certain written exams with both English and Chinese on them.
You're kidding. I believe it, but the TA doesn't speak English because mainland Chinese.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, man, but that's crazy. Like, Berkeley is like, they love socialism. They love communism. It's like,
oh yeah, we've seen.
Do you think this whole academia push is like this long game that the bankers have kind of like devised? Because first they get you first they push academia, so everyone goes to post-secondary, and then they jack up the price.
Yeah.
Now you're all indebted. Like they got you for life right out of the gate.
Yeah. On top of that, they can indoctrinate you with Marxist ideology.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Marxist ideology is a given. That comes with the package. But like that's how they get you. You know, it's like you're conned into thinking that it's going to give you the essence, the vision of security when it's not. See, it's not just part of like being red pilled in politics or anything, but I've kind of also like found ways like to like, because basically I'm now like somewhat self-employed. YouTube's not all the way I do, but I've found ways to like make money, and it's not, you don't need a college education to do it, right? You don't necessarily like, I could talk for hours about this. Like I'm actually going to start more of like a self-employed like personal finance type YouTube channel, weirdly enough, like as a
second channel.
Huh?
A second channel? Or
yeah, I'm gonna be working with some other guys, because that's the thing is like I work with like business strategists and digital strategists and stuff like that too. Like that's the thing is like this is not all that I do, and I don't really have a 9-to-5. But I've learned also that like it's a scam. Like unless you want to be a doctor, right, or an engineer, like you need school for that. But if you're just trying to get a job, like it's just it's too much. Like you're paying so much for nothing. You've got no return, right? If I could do it again, I don't think I'd change anything, because I got a good fat scholarship to go to art school. And like, I mean, art school's kind of useless, but like it gave me some perspective. But if I was just trying to get a job, like, no, it just doesn't work, you know? So
you guys, when you were coming out of high school, did you two feel pressured into like
Yeah.
going to college. It was
Yeah.
was that the only choice for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad was a dropout, so that's why he particularly pushed me to finish.
Man, Bill, you're being extra Asian right now, but I love it. Yeah, for me, it was like I wasn't pressured by my parents actually. I don't think my dad would have cared if I didn't attend college.
Well, remember I said pressured, not by who.
Yeah. I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
Pressured by my fellow students because I went to an international school in Shanghai. Like everybody goes to college, right? If you don't go to college, you feel, and you're like I was 17 at the time. It was like the FOMO hit me hard. I applied to 2 schools, right, and got accepted into both, and chose one over the other. Like it was either the U of A or CCA where I went. That was it. Those were my only 2 choices. The guidance counselors were all like, "Okay, apply to 10 schools, all of that stuff." I applied to 2 because there was only 2 places I wanted to go or had in my list, and I didn't really care for college that much. See, that's the thing. I only went because everybody else was going. If I didn't have that same kind of pressure, I probably wouldn't have gone to college. But I did get a scholarship too, so I felt like, man, you know what, might as well, right? And as a 17-year-old, you don't know any better. Everyone's going to college. You're like, I'm going to do it. And my scholarship was really big. They paid for like 30% of the overall tuition, and I finished in 3.5 years as opposed to 4. So it's like, it wasn't all bad.
So in my case, I didn't go because I didn't feel like going. I was really lazy. I hated school.
Were you pressured?
I was pressured, but I just didn't give. My laziness won over peer pressure.
You don't strike me as a lazy person, Bill. I mean, when you say lazy, are you not academically oriented, or do you legit like to laze around? Like, which is it?
Here's the thing. I'm extremely hardworking right now. Ever since I went through my little like outlaw phase, I've been extremely hardworking, starting in my late 20s and early 30s. But that's only because I'm working hard now, so I could laze around when I get into my my older years.
Oh, well, that's generally what the path that most people are on. What do you do actually, Bill, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I'm in legal.
Oh, okay.
But I'm a scrub. I can't represent anyone, so I most
Sorry, say that. You froze for a second. Kind of went.
I'm illegal, but I'm a scrub, so I can't represent anyone. I mostly just audit documents.
Oh, okay. I think you told me that a while back, and it's just interesting that it's like I think we talked about that briefly, but it was like I don't know. I think I didn't know that for the time being. Sorry, just give me a second. Something kind of froze here. Anyways, and Jeff, what do you do again?
Oh, before I get into that, I just wanted to jump in and remember, because I just remembered what we were supposed to talk about today, which was the hypergamy of Asian women.
Oh, yeah, give me one moment. Let's definitely talk about that.
Yeah, we're an hour and a half in, so.
Look, that was just warm up. That's why
no. Now we're lightened up. Now it's like you can ask me anything. We can go nuts because it's 11:30 p.m. where I am, and whoever's watching right now clearly is staying up to watch this. This is an American audience, so it's probably 2 a.m. for a lot of people. I'll send you tips.
Look, fuck going out to a nightclub and wasting your money on overpriced booze and women who
yeah, I'm sober. I don't drink anymore, so I don't care. Did you guys watch that? Did you guys watch that video I made about why I don't buy women drinks?
Well,
I missed that one.
It's just, I don't know. I economically, it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm somewhat frugal. That's where my Asian side comes in, but I'm also trying to like save for the future. So but actually, Jeff, what was your question? Go back to that. I didn't mean to derail you.
Hold on.
Of Asian women, we can talk about this because I can go on about this for days.
The reason why I'm going to talk about the drinks thing is, generally speaking, the woman's going to sleep with you or call you afterwards. The drink's not going to matter much. She's not gonna like decide to call you or sleep with you because you bought her that one measly drink.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Hmm.
I
So
mean,
you think that you would advocate for a different strategy? Just approach the women, don't buy them drinks.
Well, it's because the drink is really a factor in whether
Yeah.
or not you succeed or fail. Why would
Mhm.
you throw money at some
Yeah.
at a situation when it does no good, no harm, no.
Yeah. For me, the Asian in me could never bring myself to pay $10 for a beer. So
agreed. There we go. That's what we have in common right there.
That's like $12 now.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Yeah, like I just don't. And here's the thing: in my experience, it gets you nowhere.
Yeah.
If you're buying drinks for a woman just for the sole reason of trying to escalate, it doesn't really work, right? As a matter of fact, women buy me drinks now, and I don't say that in an arrogant manner. It's just I'm sincere. I'm like, no, I'm nursing my water that I got for free. But you're also not going to find me in a bar very often. That's another thing too. So it's just like, it's just that's just the aspect of it that I sometimes will go into. But like, I think that the drink, I've spoken about this on another video or channel or whatever, right? Like, it's supposed to kind of like ease people into it, right? It's like social lubrication, but if you don't need it, you don't use it, right? And there's other ways to show interest in women than buying them drinks. I think it's a little bit of an archaic model, and especially in the light of the Me Too movement and all that, it's like, no alcohol, dude. Like,
to be fair, it's not even. Back then, way back in the day, you buy women drinks because it's they're less likely to be inhibited.
yeah,
And yeah, like so, that's why it happens.
Mhm.
And
yeah. I also just don't concern myself. Like I'm at a point in my life right now where I don't, my focus isn't on women, right? It's like there are women in my life and I talk to women and interact with them, but they're not my focus. Like I'm focusing on myself. If we happen to be in a situation where we get to interact more, that's that. But it's just, it's not like I'm not. It's just like I don't really like. I don't even think about it as much. I used to be more fixated on like game and like women and all of that. Now it's like I don't really have to worry so much anymore. I'm just, I don't know, I'm just doing my thing, and that generally works.
yeah, I'm in terms of interactions, I'm still the only thing I'm really focused on in terms of interacting with women is just interaction between our lower bodies.
What's that? Sorry.
The only interaction I'm really interested in terms of being with women is the interactions of our lower bodies.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, you are a man after all. But it's like I think that I generally think like if when it comes to the concept of Asian women, right? I think like I don't know. I have had mixed experiences. That's all I'll say. Like some good experiences, but not the best experiences. And I think that like I'm not going to be the first to blame like, oh, white people for taking Asian women, because Asian women also choose those types of men, you know. It's like I know more Asian women that are with white men than with Asian men statistically. Like just I could count it on my hands. Like, yeah, there are more with white men. And what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah.
We've gone days about this, but
I would venture to say that a lot of these women who are dating white men are the same women, the same Asian women who are saying, "Oh, stop fetishizing us."
Yeah.
Yeah, we're an oppressed minority too, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like okay, gosh, I know personally, I won't name names, but I know this like BuzzFeed reporter, right? She like did a lot of stuff with BuzzFeed, with Vice and stuff, right? Big advocate for Asian rights. It's like stop fetishizing our women, stop eroticizing us. We need more Asian representation. You know, typical Asian politics, BuzzFeed.
And they're also the ones who advocate for, oh, Asian men are sexy too. You know?
Yeah, they're like Asian men can be sexy. Why don't you date this? And it's like literally she was dating the whitest guy possible.
Yeah,
the whitest guy. I have another example. This one girl.
Hey, do you think maybe these people write these pieces because they found a way to monetize their own blog?
Yeah.
They basically the things they're complaining about on a general level is actually just them writing in a journal about things I dislike about my boyfriend.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. It's very likely that that may be one of the things, you know. And it's just it's a way of just venting, right? Again, it goes back to the grievance culture. But what I will say is, like, I know countless instances of Asian women who constantly virtue signal. Like, I'm not gonna be that guy who blames white men for taking Asian women. You guys go after white men. Like, she was talking about, like, how, okay, I'm looking for the right man, right? I'm looking for a good man, a strong man, everything. It's just like typical stuff, like typical elite daily bustle type stuff that you find. And I'm not bitter or anything. I mean, hey, you do what you want, right? But it was kind of like she's advocating for being a strong Asian woman, right? Like navigating the world, self-help, self-love. They're into a lot of that stuff because I get it. You lack that in your Asian upbringing. But they go for the white man. They straight do. And I think for a good reason is because he may, aside from Asian men, represent more of those qualities of masculinity, and communication, perhaps even empathy, right? Because I know that it's not that Asian men can't be empathetic, but we're not very tactful. We have like dry personalities for them.
Throw another quality in there. It's status.
Yeah. I mean,
status maybe. I mean, there is an advantage to being in the majority, and there is an advantage. Yeah, I mean, one way or another, I think you're going to find more high status white men in the society for now.
For now, I mean, and I think it comes down to money. Like, if the Asian guy had a bunch of money, it wouldn't matter. Like, it's a done deal. Like, I will say this, like, not that I've experienced it personally, but money just changes people. Like, money just like invites crazy people into your life, even when you're not asking for it. It's like I was hearing a story about my buddy, right, who just became wealthy because he's like an entrepreneur, started making money, right, getting a lot of money, and then like it was just that like he nothing had changed from his perspective, but when the minute women knew he had money, they were just drawn to him. Like, it's just like, not even for malevolent purposes.
How did they know? Like
you'll know.
Thousands of years of evolution.
No,
like I'm sure your friend sounds like.
Go ahead.
It doesn't sound like a guy who
can smell it.
Like shucks.
Sorry, you froze.
I was saying they can smell it.
Yeah, some women, right? Well, it'll manifest itself, right? Unless nothing changed. Like, if you make a lot of money but your lifestyle didn't change, you still wear the same clothes you wear. That's kind of average. You drive a Camry, like, you know what I mean? If you live like that, which is good, that's a way.
Let's talk. Like, if you guys struck gold, like, what would change?
What would change?
Yeah, like about your life.
Probably nothing.
It's really subconscious too. The way that you walk, I think it does actually reflect in your walk, and you give off subconscious cues. Because I'll be straight up. I was a lot richer last year than I am this year, and
Bitcoin.
I think I walk differently. I talk differently. My voice might be 2 octaves higher this year because of that. So. I
mean, I have no data to support any of that, but I mean, I'll take it. Like, it's just, I think it amplifies like what you are, right? Like, I know people that because they were generous people, they become even more generous when they got money, and people who were greedy just became more greedy. It's like it doesn't really, you know, especially if you kind of go through your own journey of like earning it yourself and everything. It wasn't just granted to you. You have a different way of going about the world because you know what it took to get there, right? And that's the thing. Like, for people who are just kind of handed it, it's like there's just like no proving ground for that. And I think that what I've noticed with women, right, was like money for a lot of these men who make it put them into a mindset shift. Their perspective is just different. Right? The way they look at money is different. The way they handle money is different. It's not uncomfortable for them, right? They know what it takes. Mm-hmm. And they don't look at it as like for materialistic things. They're perhaps more fixated on other things like freedom. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people who oftentimes feel very trapped, just that in itself is attractive. right? It doesn't even have to represent itself in expensive cars or fancy watches or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to take into account as well, is that, like, you know, people can inherently, implicitly detect that, even if you're not flaunting your wealth. It's just.
Well, I feel like I would be one of those people where it's quite hard to figure out if I suddenly got rich or something. Like, I mean, I think I'd buy a better car, but that's and I would actually own a place, but that's about it.
But see, that better car is going to lead to you having a different posture, a different. It's going to affect your everything else in your life. It's all interconnected.
Look, you're the one who tells me I already dress like I'm a trillionaire because I dress like a bum.
Oh, yeah, he's either a trillionaire or actually a bum.
Yeah. No. I mean, I again, my buddy Kevin Yee's watching this, and like I've been working with him a lot. You know, my perspective on money has definitely changed. Like, this guy is like on his way to doing his own venture. He's an entrepreneur, that type. And being around people like that has shifted my thinking considerably. Like, I think that if we're going to tie that into intergender dynamics, it really just changes. Something changes. Like, you're different. You look at things differently. And I think if we're going to tie this back to like women, like it's just, they can smell it, they can detect it. And I know we were talking about like Asian women specifically, but I just feel like with feminism and with hypergamy and with what Asian women are pressured, it's like I'm not surprised that that's something that they're after, right? It's like you combine like feminism and like having to seek out, you know, a good value man or whatever, and it's just like they're gonna go for that, like, and they're the most desired too demographic, really.
Here's what I wanted to get to is that Asian women, more traditional Asian women who didn't grow up here in the West, are a lot more straight up about that kind of thing. So they, I know a girl. I won't say who she is, but she probably knows. She, as soon as she got into university.
In case she doesn't know who we're talking about, her and I don't get along.
Okay, well, you don't have to mention any names, you know.
No, just so you know.
Okay. She's not watching. But as soon as she got into university, she went on the university dating app and started looking for a med student to date.
What's her like dating app like looking for a med student to date?
I don't know, actually.
Like, how straight up was she?
I don't know, but she definitely found the med student. And her friends group always talk about the hierarchy of students to date. So you got med students, you got law students, you got, you know, engineers, and then down here you have architect. Architect is the cutoff.
What? Architects do pretty well.
They're the bottom feeders.
Yeah,
they're the rich art students, is what they are. They're like in art school, architects were like, "Oh, you're going to be making money," but you know, I know what you're saying.
But okay, so
yeah, but this is in Hong Kong, by the way. So Hong Kong girls are very straight up about this thing, and I wish that more women here in the West would be more straight up about that.
At least they'd be honest.
Yeah.
Why do you think doctors are higher up than like lawyers?
Yeah, it's the prestige, and yeah, I mean I would say maybe the earning potential in Hong Kong on average is higher for doctors.
I actually disagree. I think it's because there's this nervousness about potential drama in Asian society, as like, and they're very worried. A lot of people in Asians are very worried about an occupation like a lawyer, the kind of intention that it might invite. Like, you represented so and so, you know, it might, and people don't like that or something like that.
I don't know. For some reason, I've never got the sense from Hong Kong culture that being a lawyer was prestigious.
No,
I think that it depends on your standpoint or anything, but I think like nowadays I think that because a lot of women are in those industries more so, I think it goes beyond that now. I think like now it's specific. We don't have to dissect this too much because usually the general rules still apply. It's like, are they a good provider? But it's like, I think availability is also another thing, right? It's like, now, even though if you're not as available, that tends to be a good thing, you know, but like, I've at least that's from a personal survey that I've heard from women. It's like, that's not even enough. That's why they're attracted to all these like entrepreneur types, because it's not that they're making a lot of money. They're in control of their time. See, now it's not just about the money. It's like, are you free?
But there's also a big potentials earning.
Yeah, yeah. And I noticed that a lot of women are just like not just women. What am I saying? Men too. We are in a world right now where people don't just crave high income, but they want freedom. They want time. They want to feel connected, right? The FOMO is real. It's just like no one. It's not the. There are people that I know working in finance where it's just like they can't stand it, right? Because they just don't have time for anything else. They would actually rather give up that leverage and go pursue something else.
Yeah, that's something I don't quite understand. Is that's kind of my game right now. Is I'm gonna spend unspecified X number of years. Depends on how my plans go, like how it actually pans out in reality. But after, like, I'm gonna make as much money as possible. Then I'm gonna coast. Like, why can't you defer that to a later point in your life to kind of have that freedom?
Well, you may not be in a position where you can fully enjoy that, right? Like if you say you're 60 years old, I mean, that's, I think, the appeal of it. Like I get the logic of saving now to live your life later. But when you're like 60 and you're squeaking around, it's like, you know, like, I don't know. That's where people are just like, no, I want to make money now. I want to spend money now while I'm young, while I'm hip. And not gonna lie, I bought into that a little bit. It's kind of like if I wanted to make money, I need to figure out a way to make money now to learn how to do that. Because it's like if you are disciplined and you save money, when you're 60, you'll be rich. You'll have money. But like the point is you don't want to work your whole life to just like not, you know what I mean? You'll have.
Some of us are already squeaking around in our mid-30s. We feel like our body's been destroyed.
I think
already.
I feel like I think I just figured out what the difference is. Why I feel like I'm more willing to defer that freedom.
Okay.
It's because I spent my late teens and 20s having my adventures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Times was like have my adventures when I'm young and fully able to enjoy it.
No, that's.
And then when I'm gonna have my that's the crunch time. Then I save up enough for late life when I could just kind of sit around and play video.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm going to read off a super chat and I'm going to respond to that. Jennifer Glenn, thank you for your support as always. I know I always see you commenting on my videos. And she says, now you're rich, lol. Thank you for all of your insight and for not being afraid to speak up for what you believe in. I'm not rich yet. One day. Someday. I'm getting there. But thank you for the super chat. Thank you for your support. And thank you for watching my videos. I know that you're usually interacting, and it's good to see you on a live stream. I know this is an odd hour of the night, but I appreciate you being here. Thanks, you guys, for watching. What I was gonna say was, like I'm just trying to find a way right now for me to just like, I don't really think that you have to give it all because I feel like that's an old model. What you can do is leverage, right? At least for right now, I'm in a position where I don't want to trade time for money anymore. I want to be paid for the value I can bring to people, and I think that that's what's so appealing to a lot of younger, self-employed type people, entrepreneur type folks, even if you're a consultant or whatever, right? It's the fact that you can charge your worth and be in control of what you want to make and what you want to do for other people. Whereas it's like if you work a 9 to 5, not gonna lie, when I worked a 9 to 5, I only worked maybe one of those 8 hours a day, right? Even in it's just like you feel like you're not utilizing yourself to your best. Whereas now my income is a little bit more unpredictable, but I feel like when I do make money, it's like it's good money and it's money that I know that's what I'm worth. So
I don't know, like if you only work 1 out of the 8 hours that you went to work, I'd say it was pretty lucky.
Yeah.
I'd say I work 95% of the time I'm actually at work, and I would love a situation where I just go to work and sit around and do nothing. That would be my ideal job.
Believe me, people think that that's a good thing. It sucks.
No, I've done it before. I was very happy with it.
Real quick, I want to read another super chat. Thank you, Let Freedom Ring America. I really appreciate you being here. Great stuff, man. Keep up the good work. Great to see fellow Asians being real. That's what we do. We keep it real. And usually when we're over an hour into a stream is when we start to lighten up a little bit and start shooting the shit, talk about random stuff. But it's true. I mean, yeah, so I appreciate your super chat. Thanks for being here. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I know it's late at night, which for, 60, 70 people, that's pretty good for close to midnight my time. I know a lot of my viewers are in the US, so the whole mid to East Coast is asleep right now, but good to see you guys here. Let's see. Oh, you gonna start drinking right now, Bill?
I had my dinner, so I can drink now.
Man.
So okay, let's go back to the topic. I have a few things I want to ask because
yeah.
So you lived in Shanghai for a while, and I'm sure you've gotten up into some shenanigans while you were a bit younger, and Jeff hangs out in Hong Kong a lot. I actually personally, the only partying I've done with Asian people is actually working at a bartending at a nightclub in one of the most Asian nightclubs in Vancouver at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But in Asia, what is the etiquette in terms of going out and partying? Like, how do the women react? Do they expect you to buy them drinks? Like, how is it different? I'm sure it's very different.
Yeah. Let me expand on that a little bit. So I think it's good to give some context. I was partying in Shanghai from 15 to 17. Okay. So you need to frame that for a second. And the thing is, because we were foreigners, we were able to get away with like going to clubs and bars and stuff because like we weren't like they didn't care if you were drinking, right?
There's also the fact that in China, if you knew the right people or you give them the right amount of money, they'll just let you in.
Well, yeah, it's also because we were like expats. We were like Guaylo and all that kind of stuff. So they don't, you know what I mean? You get away with more. Like that's just the thing, right? Unfortunately. So we would like party and stuff. I don't know. There wasn't really a lot of like stuff to do per se. Like I didn't really do very much partying myself, but like when you talk about like women and everything, it's like they didn't really expect you to buy drinks. I mean, that was a nice gesture, but I don't think that there wasn't like it wasn't an expectation. And plus I was like 16 at the time. We were just like messing around. We'd go to clubs and we'd hop around and we'd, go and get late night street food at 2 a.m. in the morning and sit on a roof and drink. Like we used to do that where it was just like, we would go clubbing and barring, but like I'll be honest, man. When I was in high school, like I had my bros, I had my friends and everything. We weren't balling with women. Like we weren't like when people say, "Oh, you were partying a lot in Shanghai," and all that kind of stuff. It's like we weren't getting women. Like let's just put it that way. We would go out and drink. We'd hang out at the clubs a little bit. We'd hang out till maybe 12 or 1 o'clock. That's what we do on a Friday night or something. And then we'd just go get street food. And then we'd climb to the roof of this like building that was like technically closed, but we had a back door in and we'd like literally go up the stairs to the roof. There's a hatch for the roof. And we would sit off of this high rise in Shanghai. It was really great. It was like a tall building, sit on the roof and drink. Like that's what we did. There was no women. Like there were I had like no real experiences with women. I mean, I had some, but it didn't come from like a club scene or a bar scene.
Jeff, what do you know?
I only have one data point. It's the same data point that I mentioned.
It always comes back to the same data point.
Yeah. I'll say, okay, her friends. Yeah, well, Hong Kong is fairly westernized.
Right.
And the clubbing area, the notorious clubbing area in Hong Kong is Lan Kwai Fong, which is
we've been there.
A very, very westernized area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think because of the Western influence, there is this culture of buying girls drinks and that kind of stuff. And yeah, there's a lot. I've heard some stories. It's like, oh, hey, doctor, let's make out, and then yeah, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's kind of very westernized. So
I think that like that's happened to me. Like I've hooked up with girls in clubs where it was just like but it was only because it wasn't like because I was good at anything. It was just a spur of the moment. Like it was good timing. Like you only got with that girl because of like just good timing, not because you were on your game or anything. I was a student. Like I was 16. Like there was nothing that I was doing at the time that was getting me anywhere with women. Like it's just like it's not that I was like incompetent with women. I have female friends, but I was heavily blue pill. I was simping. Man, there's this great simp tale. I need to tell O'Shea actually, get him to feature on his channel. He does this thing called the simp box where he like it's supposed to be comedic where people send in like text messages of when they used to simp, and it's just like I used to do that in high school. I was like, I feel really like gross about it, but it is what it is. Like all guys do it, but like I wasn't balling like in high school. When guys say that they were like slaying in high school, it's like a lot of them are exaggerating. Like that only happened until like maybe like honestly like after college. Honestly, like
But in Asia, there's also the fact that you're a little bit westernized that makes you a little bit more attractive. That's bonus.
You're for it, but not that for it.
Yeah.
but I went to school with international school kids, so they were all like me. That's the thing. So it's like the playing field was level. It's not like I had an advantage over anyone.
You have advantage over the locals.
Yeah, but no, dude, I don't deal with locals, man. I don't mess with those. No way.
So I decided next time I go to we go to Hong Kong, we go clubbing. I'm gonna tell them I'm a doctor.
Yeah, just do that. But I will say this though, we would hang out in these like. Are you guys familiar with this? I'm kind of changing the subject a little bit, but somewhat related. In Shanghai, they have these like karaoke places that you can like book out, and they're really fancy. Like I don't know if they have those here, but they have like you might have to go to like Koreatown or whatever. But
They have them here. It's just like only Asians go there.
Oh, okay. But they had these like fancy karaoke places where you could like get a bunch of screens and there the lighting was really cool and stuff. You could dim it and it's like really fancy.
They have like 3,000 songs like in
with the lyrics and everything. We used to do that. And then like I don't know, that was like how we would like pregame. Like before, it's like if you were out with women, and I'm not gonna lie, like I did this with my friends, like, oh, if you wanted to get with some girl, just go KTV first and then go out after. Clearly it didn't work, but that's just something that we did. Like
so I'm gonna talk about my experiences here. In my mid-20s, I bartended for one of the most Asian nightclubs in Vancouver in Vancouver at the time. And we catered mostly to. Now I don't ask, but just mean like I don't mean they pretend to be gangsters. I'm like these are actual gangsters. They like they like coming to the nightclub because we were the only nightclub at the time who did not do ball watch. We had no we did not report on who comes and goes to the place. So they like coming here, and a lot of them are loaded. Like I ran one of the busiest boy in the nightclub, and I think my record earning was like $1,200 for one night of work just on tips.
Damn.
And that's only my take. I had to split two other ways. So and what I saw at the time was because I don't know if it's just because this was a demographic of people with extremely high earnings and no real way to save it or spend it in other ways. But they basically throw their money away. They some of my regulars they would come approach my bar and every time it's new girls. Like they grab 10 girls off the dance floor, they bring them to the bar, and they would buy drinks for all of them. And I gave them kind of I did some clever accounting with my liquor stock and the pricing, and that way it still works out. But I end up giving them a deal when they buy in bulk, so they like coming back. But these guys are just like they would spend like like thousands of dollars a night. Like each time they come by the bar, they'd be spending $200, and then they tip me like $30.
Really?
Yeah, it was just fucking crazy back then. But like, I'm just asking, like, how people in Asia, like actual Asia, act. Like, is this how it goes? Are they just balls deep crazy like that back in Hong Kong? I don't know. Like, or do they act like that in Shanghai?
I mean, Shanghai and Hong Kong, I wouldn't be surprised. There's some of the most wealthy people live in those cities, like in the world. Like some of the wealthiest people there are, and even if they're not the wealthiest, there's a considerable amount of wealthy influence. Whereas just a lot of like rich Chinese that live. I mean, I knew a lot of rich Chinese where they just like throw money around like it's nothing.
And particularly second generation rich Chinese.
Yeah. They're called like Fu or Dai. That's the name, right? Like rich Chinese kid, where it's like their parents earned a ton of money and the kid is just balling like crazy, like fast cars, like cool clothes, like you name it. The kid's been given everything, right? There's a ton of those. I remember going to schools where I knew a lot of people like that because it's an international school, so there was just a lot of people that were in that kind of lifestyle, and it wasn't like it's just something that I kind of just saw, but it's not something that I experienced that I knew about. So,
and so here's the thing. I feel like in the West, everybody except Asians, when they see something like this, when they see the people around them living it up, like not having the FOMO, not having to work, having money, there's this sort of like seething jealousy, which is what gives rise to the whole Marxism thing.
Yeah, right.
Why does this not happen to us Asians? Like, I feel like a lot of us look, we'd be having a lunch break, we'd be eating at a restaurant, and then we see these kids whose outfit costs more than our car, and they're clearly not at work. They could take their lunch as long as they want. They're all hanging out. They're not going to be working later. They're not going to be working late on the week either. We're jealous. We're like, well, we wish we were them. But we don't go like, oh, like, they should pay their fair share. Like, where's that divide? And how can we get white people to think more on our level? Because we have transcended like Marxism.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know how to respond to that. Like,
'cause I'm the best.
I mean, so what was your question, Bill?
Where's the difference? We look at those kids and we're like, man, we wish we were them. But white people will look at someone, or like, black people, Hispanics, whatever.
In the West in general.
In the West in general.
Westernized Asians.
They would look at these kids and say, oh, how dare they? They should pay their fair share.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that. I mean, if they earned it.
I mean, in general.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, is this a race thing, or is this just the fact that they were so like well off?
It's not really racially motivated. It's just that
a reaction to someone having what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I really don't know, and I think it's different. Like, I don't think some people care that much. Some people might kick up a fit, but like
in Hong Kong, when we would talk about Fu Yidoi, right? We would say, "Oh, yeah, it's he's just a rich kid, whatever," right?
It's like, hey, how lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like he's a rich kid.
How
dare he? He doesn't deserve that.
I think that's just perspective, though. Like, ever since I've gone through some personal development stuff, when I see rich kids like that, I don't get pissed anymore. Like, I used to be like, oh, screw that guy. But now I'm just like,
developments that you have, like, that's what we're interested in. How can we get how can we get the mainstream to all transcend from Marxism?
Yeah, the problem is people are flat out not taught how money works in this country. No, because here's the thing. I tell people this all the time. If we were to reform our education system to include just two things, intergender dynamics and personal finance, we would see a far better functioning society. Because when you learn things like that in school and you look at money differently, you don't have grievance culture. You don't have people that freaking, go no limit on their student loans and do stupid stuff. Like, the reason why we have a negative affiliation with rich people is because we flat out don't know how money works. Rich people know how to leverage their money better. They know how to leverage their time. When I look at rich people now, I look at them and go, man, what did you do to get there? Now, some people are spoiled. Some people are inherited, they're trust fund babies. I have people in my family that are trust fund babies. I'm not. But I think that, like, it's perspective, right? And I think, like, for the mainstream, it's education. Like, if you taught people that you could be rich by doing a couple of simple steps, it would take you a lot of time, you would get there, right? And that would solve one thing. Or you could leverage time for money. You could find ways to do this. It's not easy. It's not for everyone. But, like, that's another, like, red pill aspect for society is like, people in this country don't know how money works. They flat out, that's why everyone's in debt. That's why everyone's broke, is because they flat out don't understand how money works. Like, you earn money and then you just, like, spend all of it. You don't know how to save. You're taught that debt, huge amounts of debt, is acceptable. I mean, I hope that helps, right? It's like, when we look at, like, some of these kids, like, yeah, they're snotty, yeah, they're kind of shitty, but, like, I personally don't look at rich people with, like, a bad pair of eyes. I just think, like, man, what did he do to get to that point? Like, how did
what you're saying is it's about education, and what Asians usually get right is that we teach most of our kids how money works, and those that don't know how money works are rich anyway. So
yeah, I'm gonna clip that 1 minute clip out, and then I'm gonna share it on social media.
Really? Do it. Well, okay, you'll know it's 2 hours into the stream, just so. Okay. Why did that speak to you?
Yeah, I think that was a real home run.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. That's the thing, dude. I'll be honest with you guys. Have you guys watched Dan Locke's ads on YouTube?
Yeah, I actually follow Dan Locke on
yeah.
Talk about him weekly.
So here's the thing. I've taken his course. I've gone through his training.
High Ticket Closer?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Some people on this channel already know a little bit. And one of my favorite YouTubers, O'Shea, he's like the king of Black Negro Manosphere, like Black YouTube. He also knows about him, right? And he had Matt Tran on his channel today.
Yeah.
Dude, I took Dan Locke's course, and it, like, changed the way I looked at money. Like, it's just changed. Like, it's just you know what? I'm not an affiliate, but if you guys want to check it out, you guys should sign up for it. Like,
he's doing a course on YouTube now, how to make money from YouTube.
Yeah, he's doing that because he's ruled it, dude. He's got over 1 million subscribers now. That guy just blew up like crazy, right? But
he talks about him every week, every time, every Friday. Leo here about Dan Locke. Him, I heard about it from you.
Yeah, no, Dan Locke knows what he's talking about.
They do not understand the money.
No, I do impressions of the guy all the time. My boy Kevin Yee, if he's watching this, he's gonna laugh his ass off. We love Dan Locke. We all went through that program. That's how we're all close friends. Like, it's like, I'm not gonna lie, like, people are skeptical and all that, but I will say this, like, all of that stuff is true. The problem is most people don't implement. Most people don't go through the mindset shift of looking at things differently. That's why it's so hard, because what you don't realize is that you have to transform. You have to think about things differently. Your mindset is going to inform your behavior. If you think in terms of victim mentality, if you think in terms of time for money, as opposed to leveraging your value for work, think about that, right? It looks differently. Like, let me ask you this, like, people who are millionaires in this country, right? Do they work 10 times harder than poor people? They don't.
Not all.
Oh, no, they know how to leverage, right? Does a billionaire work 10 times harder than a millionaire? No. It's about understanding how it works. Like, I know now we're talking like entrepreneurship, which this show is just
very.
It's good. It's good because people
entrepreneurship and money will make you popular with women. So.
Yeah, no, and the thing is,
it's still related to this.
The thing is, Grant Cardone, you probably have seen his stuff too. He said something that I thought was really great, which was the fact that he said that when he earned all that money and he was putting it into capital and everything, he said something that it was just kind of like, he said it wasn't his money. He used other people's money to leverage, right? And he's a sales guy, right? So it's all transactional. He doesn't think of it in terms of like, I have to work this long to get this amount of money. he thinks of it in the terms of like, I just have to do this many deals. I just have to make sure that I give enough value to people, and then they'll in turn give me value, but it's a financial transaction. Because here's the thing, right? Like it's the same amount of work to do a $10,000 deal as it is to do a $100,000 deal. That's the difference, right? A lot of people think, man, $100,000, I've never dealt with that much money before. So it must be a lot of work. I must need to prep a lot. No, it's the same amount of work to close a deal that's that big as it is for something that's $1,000, and you'll have a higher quality of product, higher quality of person that goes through. Like, see, we're not taught these things in school. That's why nobody knows. Like, you only know when you decide to investigate. You have to spend money. That's the thing, is I've learned this truthfully. Like, you have to spend money to get real value out of something, because if you don't spend money, you're not committed. Have you ever noticed that? It's like until you drop, like, it's like college, right? You had to drop money on college, otherwise you wouldn't have taken it seriously.
I still didn't take it seriously though.
I didn't take college.
Because it was just like a typical thing that everyone did. It was just like, you know, so you kind of took it for granted because number one, you probably weren't paying for it, and if you were, there's a bit of a disconnect, right, between like what it is that you're doing it because everyone's doing it. You're not doing it necessarily like with intent. You know what I mean? You did it because everyone was doing it. There was no real intention other than the fact that you're conforming to what the mainstream tells you to do.
Well, my intention was not to go to school, and I think I fulfilled on that intention.
Yeah. Hey, well, real quick, before you get to the next thing, I just need to shout out a couple of super chats. 10 INTM says, 3 of my favorite criminally undersubbed YouTubers in the same chat have some capital. Thank you for your 666 donation. We are not members of the Illuminati, so you don't have to worry, but thank you for that. JV says,
I wish.
Yeah. One of these days. One of these days.
And JV says, during the Ming Dynasty, China explored the seas before becoming reclusive during the Qing Dynasty. If dynastic China persisted with imperialism, would that affect perceptions of Asians today? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we can go into that topic in a bit. But I don't know. What do you guys think of what I just said? Like, that's just kind of like how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? As someone in a famous movie once said, "Always be closing."
Always be closing. It's true.
ABC, always be closing.
Donald Trump, man, one of the greatest closers of our time. That guy knows how to close. Like, it's just he's a salesman. Like, if Donald Trump lost all his money, right? Hypothetically speaking, politics aside, you know what he would do?
He would close.
No, he would just be like, give me something to sell and I'll go door to door with it.
I know, and he would close.
He would close.
Yeah.
You know, if he lost his fortune, he could build it back up. See, that's the crazy thing that we figure. It's like, it doesn't take more effort or 100 years to get to that amount. It just takes a different way of thinking. And that's going to inform your decision. So that's what blew my mind. Like, when I went through that, I went through like a different mindset shift. So I don't look at like rich people as bad people anymore. I used to think that. I used to think like, man, rich people suck. You know, they take from the poor people. No, they don't.
Well, I've never thought rich people were bad. I just wondered how I could be one of them.
You could be. You just have to find out what it is, what your goals are, and what the necessary steps are. Like, reverse engineer the process, right? Like, if you
never walk again.
Joseph Sandoval, thank you so much for your super chat, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the $2 super chat. And hi, Gabe. Good to see you, man. Gabe of Fat Samurai Productions. Good seeing you here. I'm going to make you a moderator, dude, because you're always here, but I usually forget that you're not forget, but, you know, you're always here. Anywho, yeah, it's just I don't know. Like, Dan Locke, like, he's another one of he's in Vancouver, by the way. Just so
I know, yeah.
You could probably
the amount you talk about him. I just expect you to like go knock on his door one day.
I have a friend who's on his team actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh really? Because I probably know them because I went through this program.
Oh, Steven.
Man.
I
guess we're not that good friends.
What kind of friend are you? You don't remember his last name?
Is it Steven Zhao? Steven Zhao.
Steven Zhao? Let me see.
He's like,
oh,
get on Facebook.
University of British Columbia?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the program already.
Vancouver, like 40% of people graduated from UBC.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to know. I mean, like, there you go, small world. But man, like, no, it was a mindset shift. I look at things a little bit differently now, and I'm glad that I do because I think that like when you look at somebody like him, immigrant story, he came to this country, didn't know how to speak English, and then built his fortune, businesses became rich. Like it's possible. And you have to think about it in terms of like, I mean, what can I do as opposed to that's not possible, right? When you do that, it's just like, yeah, well, it's not going to happen if you have that kind of attitude.
Also, he mentions this a lot. He went broke. He was absolutely broke in his mid-20s.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He went broke twice, I think. That's the crazy thing is these people can bounce back. That's another impressive thing.
Mhm.
But
So what now we just talk about making money. What do you see yourself making money in? Like
Mhm.
what if let's say you had the opportunity, like all conditions are perfect. What will you go balls deep in? Aside from a woman, but what will you in terms of business? What will you go balls deep in?
I don't know. I mean, like my own thing, I'd probably like I don't know, sell some kind of course, just like what a lot of people do.
No, but that's not the end game. You have to sell courses on how to sell courses.
Yeah. That's one thing that I always think is the downside of a lot of internet marketers is that they sell courses on how to sell courses as opposed to selling courses on other things, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to genuinely be able to add value and you have to actually get people results before they pay for it. The reason why they buy into your price barrier is they've gotten something out of it, and that's usually how it works. But yeah, like I don't know. I'll be honest, like I'm still kind of figuring it out. I don't really have a plan.
For me, I've thought about this a little bit. I have two end games. One end game is kind of like I guess a childhood dream that it's never been fulfilled. Is I want to make movies. I want to be a filmmaker.
We're going back to that again.
It's it'll never die until I finally get the film done.
We made some of the worst footages ever.
Yeah, I bet so has Steven Spielberg though.
Well, would you? I mean, what's stopping you from doing it now? Like,
oh no, we're working on stuff.
It just tends to be bad.
Yeah. But number two is that now that we have kind of this, online presence, this brand, is I want to expand it. I want to make it into kind of either a multi-channel network or just bring more people on board and make this into a whole media thing.
I think that's somewhat what I'm also thinking of doing. You know what's the funny thing that I don't really know if a lot of people listening to this or watching this knows, but like this channel, my Zach King channel, was kind of just like to kind of see how things go, right? The truth is I'm gonna keep this going, obviously, but I'm gonna start over. Like I'm gonna do another channel and do a bunch of new stuff that's not necessarily politically or socially oriented. Like the fact that I got successful on this YouTube channel, which I thank everybody here. Thank you for 50K. I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. But it's like, I want to like bring value to other people. Like really what I like doing is like, some of those how-to type stuff doing, but it's just like, I didn't think that was the place I was in life right then to be doing that. So I don't know.
We have a friend. I think she should do a how not to channel.
Who?
What?
Oh,
he's been renovating his basement for like a year and a half now, and I think he should do a like how-to video, a parody of a how-to video, but it's actually him working for real. It's gonna be like a how not to video.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing, right? I think at the rate I'm going, I mean, I'm not balling in money, not even close. But it's like, I have a couple clients that I work with, and it does well. It's just like it's in the beginning stages of we're working together. But that's the thing is like you just need to establish long-term relationships with people, and like we need to like, this is all just like a learning experience. Like I don't see YouTube, politics, blood sports, whatever you want to call it, as being the end all be all. Like what I really want to do is like help people I want to bring value to people. If you get paid in the process, that's a good thing too, right? And it's like, I feel like these topics that we talk about as tied also to individual self-improvement are all heavily in line and related. And like,
well, millennials are big on self-help books.
Yeah, but that's the thing is I've also come to the conclusion that I think self-help books are great because that's what millennials want to hear. But the thing is, we're too overwhelmed with information to the point where we don't take action. That's the problem. The problem isn't information, right? There's too much information out there. The problem is the lack of implementation. Like in say a business course that you take, right? Steps 1 through 10 is getting your business off the ground. Most millennials, most people do steps 1 through 8. Step 9 is basically pick up the phone and call 100 people. Now that's where they stop. And then they go, oh, it didn't work. Well, because you didn't follow through. So it's not really a lack of information. It's more of a lack of implementation is what we're struggling with, right?
I don't know.
I love self-help books because we're so depressed.
I don't know. I've never, it's very unmillennial of me, but I've never read a self-help book in my life. Because I don't need help. I'm perfect as I am.
Is that so?
Yeah.
You okay?
I'm a perfect being, and I'm God's gift to the earth.
I believe it, Bill. If you believe it, but I also don't know if you're kidding or not.
I'm totally not kidding.
Okay. Joseph Sandoval says, "Do you think everybody can have success at life, or will people have to work blue-collar jobs? What determines successful people from the opposite?"
Number one, what's wrong with blue-collar jobs?
Well, this is actually, we're gonna do a video about this later, but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, how not everybody is born equal, how some people have more gifts from God than other people do,
like me,
and it's an unfortunate fact, but not everybody has the capability to become an NBA player, but not everybody has the capability to become a nuclear physicist. Not everybody can be Steve Jobs.
Not everyone can be me.
Yeah, not everyone can be Elon Musk. And the reality is some people are ultimately, their fate is to work something that's
be a janitor.
Not as glamorous.
You work in the NBA, but you wipe the sweat off the ground.
Oh, that's a pretty good. Yeah, I mean, for your skill set, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer that a little bit, determining successful people from the opposite is just the people who decide to take action. That's all it is. Because there are certain people that are just going to exert more, right? Yes, genetics are not distributed equally. Some people are going to have an easier time doing certain things. Hell, even if you're more beautiful, more attractive, you're probably going to be granted a little bit more opportunities as far as doors are concerned than other people. But it's the people that implement, right? It's not even just about hard work. It's like hard work mixed in with intelligent initiative, right? It's kind of like you need a plan.
Yeah.
And success is so subjective. Like, what does success mean? Getting your dream job? Some people think that that's successful, but some people see that as a trap. Or is it when you make a certain amount of money? Like, that's the thing. It's entirely how you define it. And if you don't define it, you won't be successful because you don't know what it is.
Yeah. Someone once told me that results it's a multiplication. So it's a multiplication of natural talent and implementation. So if you have a low natural talent, you can still multiply that many times with good implementation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the things I want to point out is why I don't it's one of the things I never got is why is blue collar jobs so frowned upon? I mean, back on the original topic is some of the most masculine people I know work in blue collar jobs.
Yeah. I think part of it though is because we're going through this, what they call the fourth industrial revolution. So there's a lot of automation on the horizon. There's a lot of blue collar jobs being phased out. And in the future, all the high earners are going to be people who are using their minds and knowledge rather than hands and labor.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it's because there was a push for education, right? The academic institution. which happened in like the 50s and 60s, that I guess also just led to people considering other opportunistic jobs that are more white collar oriented. I mean, I wouldn't say that blue collar jobs became unpopular necessarily. I just think that there was just a more of a different focus, right? It's like office jobs. And I think I think blue collar work, there's nothing wrong with blue collar work. It's just it's for different people. I think from now that I have a little bit more experience and life, I've gone through life a little bit more. With blue collar workers, it's going to be a better fit for certain people, but not for everyone.
Well, I'm certainly one of those people who acclimatize to blue collar jobs way better. I get along with the work culture way better, and
yeah,
I generally more happy in them. The only reason why I'm in a white collar industry right now is because of the money.
Yeah, again,
actually, the first pure white collar job I've had. Well, like current job.
So, real quick, before we forget, I want to address a super chat that we didn't quite answer, which was by JV. We haven't forgotten about you, buddy, in case you were wondering. And it was, if dynastic China persisted with imperialism, how would that affect perceptions of Asians today? I know we're shifting gears a little bit, but we should probably answer that.
How would that affect perception of Asian what?
I'll reread it. So, during the Ming Dynasty, this is kind of random because we're jumping around. China explored the seas before becoming reclusive during the Qing Dynasty. Yeah. If dynastic China persisted with imperialism, would that affect perceptions of Asians today?
Well, there's two different scenarios there. Would they have become the British Empire, or would they have become kind of like the Dutch Empire or Portuguese Empire?
Yeah, I think it's just you'll see pockets of Asian influence more universally.
Yeah,
that's really all we can say, right? It's not like, I don't think it was a mishap of the fact that China decided to become reclusive and that affects perception. I just think that there's the extent of influence would just be different. Like, you would basically see more Chinese presence in countries that are now obviously more influenced by the British Empire or the Spanish Empire.
But, had they become the British Empire in that scenario, then we'd all be speaking Mandarin today, I guess.
I disagree. It's if you look throughout history, empires always peak and then they fall apart. Like if they had formed the empire back then, we would not be seeing a rise of China now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But we would be all speaking Chinese similarly to how we're all speaking English.
Yeah.
It had become a global empire and everybody is the language of commerce.
Oh, yeah. And on all great empires, dynasties, whatever you want to call it, yeah, there's a natural ebb and flow to them as far as they become more prominent or powerful. And that's the thing. That's the thing. It's like every empire, from the Greek, the Roman Empire, the Babylonian Empire, and when Europe was basically divided into so many different parts, it's like that's been pretty consistent throughout history, right? Even in the Far East. So to answer that JV's question here, I think that, yeah, the perception would obviously be different. We would definitely see just an influx of a different influence, but it's impossible to pinpoint just because throughout history, that's just what humans have done. Like, the entire continent of Europe is essentially a continent where lines are drawn and redrawn due to the amount of conquests that happened throughout history in that era, right? North Africa being taken over by Arabs, and the borders of Hungary constantly changing. Think about even like the Soviet Empire, Soviet Union. So, yeah.
I think that, yeah, like aside from language, and it wouldn't be very different from today, I don't think, because by this time, if they had been expansionists, they had become an empire, they would have fallen already.
Yeah. I mean, we don't speak Mongolian today, even though Genghis Khan had the biggest empire.
Yeah. No, that's true. We don't. So, I mean, I think that it's hard to say. Like, that's just even in the United States, right? Like, there was a lot of, as far as how the United States came into prominence, there was just a lot of influence from the British, the Dutch.
Mhm.
And it's like, I don't know, it's just impossible to pinpoint. It's also 12:30 in the morning, so my brain's kind of fried.
The Ming Dynasty is fairly recent, though. It ended in 1644. So
That's still 300 years ago, like 400 years.
yeah. So what was the empire before the British Empire? What was the dominant power at that time?
Spanish.
Spanish, maybe. Yeah.
Spanish.
They never found the gold, so they kind of fell to the wayside.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things could have changed. I mean, they could have taken, dominated the oceans and changed the course of history.
Well, India might have ended up being China's rather than England's because of just geographical proximity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Dude, this guy Stephen Zhao, I'm gonna check him out now that you guys mentioned him. I know that's random, but sorry, just
All right.
anyways, I don't know. What else is on you guys' mind? You guys not too tired yet? I'm still down to talk.
How are you doing?
I'm a little fried, but we can, just
That's fine. We can start wrapping up.
but I thought that this was pretty productive, talking about a lot of this stuff. I think that I think ideally it's just to kind of take it back to the topic of like the gender war and masculinity. I think again the emphasis here to bottom line this is just to make sure that people are still working on themselves and really like pushing for the values that they believe in. And I think for men, right, men definitely need to just like take ownership and just like be held accountable to their own actions. Because as much as we like to blame women for a lot of things, because a lot of men do that, we still need to be held accountable to ourselves. It's like I don't see the point in a lot of men getting angry over a lot of like women, in some of these scenarios. I mean, I get it if you're invading a male space, but it's just, I mean, what else are you gonna do, really? So
well, what I would like to say is quite similar. In terms of male space, we need to go at it a bit more closely. Have tighter knit groups. Makes it harder for people to just come in and do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Work for what you believe in. Don't play the game if it's rigged. Like if you truly, we hear a lot of like advice being given by the conservatives and the left, and a lot of it tends to become, hey, like to change society, you have to pay into the system.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how they want to word it. Like they could be from talking from two different perspectives, but really be telling you the same things. You got to sacrifice for society. If you don't believe in it, don't do it. Like why would you do someone else's bidding when you don't believe in it?
The sex robots are coming.
If you don't believe in investment in a spouse or a partner, then don't. Like wait for the sex robots. Wait for VR. And if it makes you happier, then that's exactly what you should do. But if for those of us who want to take a chance, we should take a chance.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, I think we should fall back onto a very libertarian idea as to what each individual man should do. It's like do what you believe is right for you,
Right?
but take ownership of it.
Yeah,
because that's what being a man is about.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I'd like to add is kind of just because I get it. I was there once in my 20s, very frustrated, very, seeing that women are so hypergamous and they don't want to date me because I'm a scrub. But, then
you found out that someone is going to date you even though you're a scrub and eventually marry you even though you're still a scrub years later.
Yeah, but she lucked out because somehow I got rich. But anyway, it does, it's a cliche now, but men do age very well. We age like a fine wine. And statistically, our peak earning years are in our mid-30s.
Yeah.
So life does get better for you.
It's coming.
Yeah, for you frustrated young men.
I wanna do one more topic before we close out.
Mm-hmm.
So back on the original topic of this attack of masculinity. Now, Asian men weren't our stereotype. Stereotypically, we're not the most masculine men to begin with.
Right.
But in terms of the current global culture, we're not as attacked as Whitey. We're not as attacked as the men in the West.
Right.
But you know, it's only a matter of time. What do we do? Like we can now we see this ad after 10 years of attacks on Western men, and it has been 10 years of just taking it. It's handing the keys to the kingdom to the enemy, capitulating on every issue they push. That's 10 years of this have brought us to this point. When they start coming after us Asian men specifically, what do we do? How do we stop it from? How do we not repeat this history of 10 years of defeat for our Western brothers that we could prevent?
They have so many things they could come after us for too. Look at how traditional we are with gender roles, especially in Korea, especially in Japan as well. And yeah, look at all of our kind of patriarchal values that we have in Asian culture. They could so easily come after us.
So what do we do? Like, we can't let the mistake of our Western brothers. We can't relive the 10 years worth of mistakes that our Western brothers have lived through.
I think that can happen and that will happen. And I think honestly, the idea is to kind of just like pin it on themselves, right? Asians is interesting because we fall into this unique category where we're not really the predominant race, right? And I think as we continue to really be, by population, the minority, that's where you're going to use it to your advantage, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? We're not a majority by any means. And even though that may happen, I think it's just like, I hate using this, but it's kind of like you kind of need to call them out on it. This is where Asians need to actually learn to be loud, because even though we may think that white people are loud about it or anything, they certainly don't mobilize in the same way the Black community does about issues, right? When Asians can be as loud as other communities are about this, that's how you confront it. Because here's the thing, even though white men were being attacked about this, there weren't a lot of white men standing up to it either, just kind of taking it in the shins, right? Like there's a reason why certain minority groups also just kind of group together. They kind of have like a mob type thing. Like when you see the Black community mobilize, they really do mobilize, right? That's one of their strengths. Asians need to do that. And if Asians can do that, then that's the way to go about doing it, while preserving our values and not just kind of blame. Like, we don't have that kind of victim mentality. So if you're loud about it and we don't succumb to that sort of aspect of you're a victim because you're a minority, I don't think it'll be a problem. Like that's the way to combat it.
Yeah, that's something unique about minority communities is that, for example, the Black community, when you look at what's cool in the Black community, the Black community, the kind of archetypal man for what's cool.
Right.
And same thing with other minority communities. But with the white community, you don't necessarily have that, oh, who's the coolest white guy kind of thing.
So I think I'm very much on board with what you said. Like, I agree with a lot of that, but I think you mentioned a lot is how do we get Asians to rally together? And I think the best way to do it is point to the 10 years worth of humiliation Western men have suffered because they didn't act soon enough. They didn't rally soon enough, and they didn't see this as what it is, a threat to their identities.
Right.
And we just point at it and say, hey, look what happened for 10 fucking years. They told first they told them they weren't there for their culture, they weren't there for their space, and look what happened. They were there for their culture and their space and more. Why we can't make the same mistakes.
Right.
But on this note, I actually do think that the Asian community in the West is a little bit fractured in terms of archetypes and kind of cultural figures, I guess you could say, because we don't really have a Jay-Z or a Kanye West type of figure where we say, okay, that guy's cool. That guy's the definition of cool. For us, it's a little bit more fractured.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they should more Asians should subscribe to our channels, and then we can be the archetype of cool.
I'm already the archetype of cool.
Oh yeah, you guys definitely do that. So as we close this out, be sure to go check out the Asian Capitalist. What?
No, I'm always on his case about, hey, like, you've been shilling a lot lately.
Guys, go subscribe to the Asian Capitalist. We're coming up together. When both our channels hit 100K at some point this year, that's going to be a monumental front for Asian conservatives or Asian right wingers.
Oh, maybe also subscribe to Dan Lok then, and another Asian capitalist.
He has a ton of subscribers, and I think most people already subscribed to him. If not, they're going to see his ads everywhere, anyways. But yeah, Dan Lok for sure is another guy with I think with us though on the political front, with some of these social issues and everything that we talk about, you know, that's the thing is my goal is to hopefully see more Asians like become more loud and outspoken in this regard, because it's certainly not happening enough. Like, you know, it's just us. Like there's no Asian women that are talking about this either, like at all.
I would count Roaming Millennial.
Yeah, okay, maybe. I mean, half, and then
yeah, she grew up in Hong Kong, right? So
so
bonus points.
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, I guess one more question for the road. Why are we so quiet? Because I know we exist. But we're not. A lot of people in our positions aren't putting themselves out there. Why do you think that is?
Upbringing. It's 100% upbringing, because it's filial piety. You barely communicate with your parents. You barely speak back. You do. You're ostracized for doing it, and that manifests when you grow up. Right? Yeah. You're not taught to be vocal. Whereas people who are a different upbringing in the Black community, white community, you're taught to be more outspoken. I really think at the end of the day, it's upbringing. And it's how parenting is administered in Asian households.
So you're saying that we three made it out here because we were all little shits when we were kids?
No, I think that people in various points in life do that. Yes, I mean, it does happen. But I think that you'll find more volume, right, of Asians being louder if that was something that was actively encouraged. If not, you have to rely on the fact that they kind of figure it out on their own. And some Asians have, but some don't always take that next step, right, and like speak out about it. Mm-hmm. There's just not many of them. So
how should we change this? How do we do some late life adjustments? How in terms of our community?
And also, I think that the Asian SJWs are a lot louder than us Asians on the right. Yeah. You have like Next Shark, and you have like what's the guy? Love Life of an Asian Guy, and a whole bunch of leftists who have millions of followers on their blogs.
Oh yeah,
yeah. No, so they are kicking our ass right now.
Well, it's just something that we're gonna have to make sure that gets addressed, and I think that the way to do it is to just keep making content like this. You know, continuing to do what we do.
Now, I'm not very up to date about the whole left Asian YouTube, but the only one you mentioned that I heard of was the Love Life of an Asian Guy, or lack thereof, and I'm pretty sure like people watch that because they want to watch someone who's more pathetic than them, therefore making themselves feel better. Like, you have to realize maybe some subscriptions are just hate subscriptions.
Oh yeah, I mean, I that's really the only way I see it, is just by inspiring us to have more of an open dialogue about this, and also talking about tough things, right? Tough topics that you're not really conditioned to talk about when you're growing up. So yeah,
and people used to throw this critique: "Oh, you guys are playing identity politics now." But yeah, I guess, if you want to call it that.
To a degree, but I also feel like, you know, people can make their own decisions, right? I'm not going to say that I speak for all Asians here, and all Asians need to do this. Yeah, there are a lot of Asians that feel the way we feel.
Yeah. Ultimately, there is such a thing as the Asian community. You can see it on Facebook. There's a bunch of Asian pages, There's just it's a loose knit community, but ultimately there is a community.
Yeah, there's a lot of conservatives. They're just not as they're not. That's like I said. They don't mobilize. They don't unite the same way other communities do.
I feel like us Asians, most Asians don't start shit enough. Like I mean, I feel like I'm the person I am because throughout my entire life, one of my favorite hobbies is making people uncomfortable. Like I would do things purposely in real life to make people uncomfortable, and that's helped a lot to be more outspoken about things.
Yeah.
So like maybe the real advice is be a little shit.
Yeah,
it's true.
Be a shit starter. That's where it is.
That could be another thing that was affected by parenting, I guess. Because a lot of Asian parents are pretty strict. They bring up that, the cane with the feathers on it, right?
Right. They don't always, enforce it on you. That's the thing. You're not. It's just, I don't know. You're also
for the first about 50 times. Afterwards, you grow insensitive to it.
Yeah, you're definitely not like you're afraid of your parents for sure. That's the thing. They put so much like ridiculous expectation and discipline that it kind of like knocks the starting shit out of you as a kid. So
I don't know if it was the fact that I was particularly resilient or I'm a sore loser.
Yeah, I think that's it for me too. I'm a
really sore loser. So I'm like, I can't let them win.
Yeah.
So okay, so
but anyway,
the core is be a sore loser then.
Yeah. I mean, if it works for you, sure. Just be difficult.
Be cross-grained.
Yeah.
Okay, bedtime.
Anyway, I gotta wrap this up, but you guys, thank you so much for joining me, Asian Capitalist, Jeff and Bill. You guys be sure to subscribe to the Asian Capitalist. I'm gonna leave a link to their channel once more. And thank you guys for tuning in to tonight's stream. I know it was kind of late. I know I'm sleepy. I'm sorry. This is past my bedtime. This is the latest stream I've ever done, but thank you guys for tuning in. I know it's late. To all of you folks who have been listening this whole time, I really appreciate it. And thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.